studied, and whether or not it'd be across the whole zone or whether it would be something of, you know, an adjustment to your existing overlay zoning perhaps. But no, we would not be spot zoning. That is a bad word.
Yes.
So are we ready for the planner? Let's have the, say a few words.
Mr. Hughes, if you can just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Keenan Hughes. I'm a professional planner. I'm with Phillips Price, based in Hoboken. I would represent this township planner, T9. It's a number of other municipalities. So we were asked to sort of evaluate this proposal perspective. So I just have a few brief comments to show them, perhaps response to some of the concerns.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, just with respect to the zoning, I think it's important to point out that the way the zoning works in the SRB is that there's what's called a pass-through mechanism. So all the uses that are permitted within the B1 basically pass through to the SRB. And in my opinion, this is why the residential over commercial space requirement exists in the SRB. That's a requirement that's imposed on the B1 in the downtown area of Tenafly, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because we want a compact, walkable downtown. My opinion with respect to this area is it's really more of a transitional area at the edge of town. It does have some older non-residential retail uses, many of which are sort of withering like Benjamin Brothers. Others are perhaps more solid, but this is not where you want to encourage and promote the focus of your retail attraction efforts. And in fact, I've also read the recent downtown study that Tenafly undertook. You know, one of the things that really jumps out in that study is just, you know, the vacancy problems in the downtown. And there's a lot of great ideas about how to deal with that. But my sense is from an overall planning perspective, you know, that's where you want to focus your efforts in terms of promoting retail and commercial development. This is, again, more of a transitional area. And I think that's why the borough, when created the SRB to encourage more specifically senior housing, assisted living, thought that this was an appropriate area. It's also, I think, why look at the prior affordable housing fair share plan. There's a number of sites in this area that were identified and in fact implemented as affordable housing overlays. And those are all 100% residential. There's, I think, 5 or 6 sites within a quarter mile, maybe a half mile of the site. The borough never required any retail on those sites. Transitional residential area.
Hold on one second. If you're out there on Zoom, could you please mute your microphones, please? Thank you very much. Go ahead.
So that's how I sort of view this property in this sort of area in the context of the overall borough. I would further note the master plan, a lot of emphasis with the SRB when it first started describing what this concept is all about. As I said, it's about more diversity in housing options, specifically assisted living, senior housing. I would say that this type of housing, though, does in fact serve a need in the community in that this is the type of housing that also appeals to aging households that are looking to remain in Tenafly. They're looking to downsize from their single family homes and find housing opportunities in town. Yes.
I'm gonna stop you right there. What accommodations are you putting inside these apartments so that it is an age in place or age with dignity apartments? I want to hear specifics.
Yeah, well, there will be a clubhouse, amenity space.
In the apartments.
Elevators, they will be very high-end units. I mean, this is the type of unit you could live in after living in your single-family home for many years.
Are you doing bars, ramps,
To
flat showers? Are you doing any of those? He's not answering the question.
Go ahead, continue.
Listen, I love the concept. And again, I asked about a 55 and over, but I sit on the Senior Services Committee. And that's a real statement that you're making here, a real representation. And I didn't see anything in this plan that it was going to be geared to that population.
Mr. Regona had mentioned that all of the first floor units are handicap accessible. And again, if you did not make this adjustment, you end up with a podium-style building where you have no ground floor handicap accessible units. So at the very least, James can tell us the exact number, but you have a fair amount of handicap accessible units at the ground floor level as a result of making our request come to action.
And only the ground level?
At the very least.
Might be too early, but do we have a rough sense of what a two-bedroom would cost and a one-bedroom would cost, or is it too early?
I think it's too early, whatever the market dictates at that time, but
No, we haven't done any projections on it yet.
certainly market rate units. And then, of course, and this is my next point, there will be an affordable housing set aside here. There will be the group home. So this project could be helpful to the borough in terms of its future affordable housing compliance efforts. And just on that note, to the extent that you did not want to modify the SRB because it would impact more than just this property, you could do like the other sites in this particular area, do affordable housing overlay that's specific to this project and ensures that the borough's, getting the units that it needs in terms of its fair share compliance. And I'll just note, I did have the opportunity to reach out to the borough planner's office, and I spoke with Dave Novak in this meeting just to touch base. And I'm confident that if the borough were to, the borough council were to support this concept, I could work with him in his office to figure out a zoning solution that works.
Our borough attorney has a question about affordable housing.
Yes, so on the plan for the supportive housing, two bedrooms, I understand the 4 credits. Where are you getting 10 credits out of a 5-bedroom? This would be unmet need. There's no bonuses.
Yeah, I think this is one that need. I think there's perhaps maybe some assumptions here about potential for bonus credits. Which,
There is none.
Yeah, I think that's, frankly, I would agree that's speculative at this point. I think the important thing is you're getting the units, whether you use those as bonus credits in the next round. I mean, that's,
Well, no, what I'm saying is you would have to provide the 10 units. It wouldn't be, you wouldn't get 10 credits for 5 bedrooms. We don't have bonus credits.
okay, understood.
But certainly we can modify the plan as necessary, to certainly capture the required amount of affordable housing credits.
Of course.
Continue. You're done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council? Vanu, any council members have questions? Matt? Comments? What does the council think of this? You've got options.
But certainly we understand it's an initial conversation.
Right.
If there's interest, if there's some other questions, other areas that you'd like us to explore, we're happy to entertain that and come back to have a further conversation now that we've had a primer on what it is that we're proposing.
So what's the process here Wednesday? Do we sleep on it and have another meeting with them to come back again?
Yeah, there would be a couple of things you would want to know. For example, I know that there's representations that most of this, if not all of it, except for the first floor housing, complies with your existing zoning so far. Probably want to know what the proposed elevations actually are in feet to make sure that the height is within what's allowed within the zone, or any other deviations from the existing zoning. And then if the council's willing to entertain the idea or not, there's certainly ways to do overlay zoning. We can add it as an affordable housing overlay, whatnot, so long as there's no bonus credits. But it's really up to whether the council's vision for the area and what that zoning is.
And for clarity, when we were talking about permissibility, we're just exclusively as to use. There are some deviations from heights, perhaps from setbacks. But the conversation, I was deliberate about that the conversation was limited as to the use conversation, that the multifamily use on the upper floors was a permitted scenario, and that the exception was,
Or in the permitted level.
I'm sorry?
And that the density was within the permitted.
Correct. And that the only exception here we were asking for was to be excused from providing that element of permitted first floor retail or general office.
Did you have a question?
Just specifically to the, you asked the thinking. For me, there's 3 things. The first one is, let's just be realistic on what decisions we get to make and what we don't. So yes, maybe it's not on the first floor, but if they buy it, they can do whatever pretty much they want within the zone. So that's 1. 2 is, I personally, and this council has heard, I do have a bias towards retail. The more, any level of retail would make me more, more amenable. Everyone has their own opinion. 1 block, terrible with direction. 1 block south is this place called La Promenade. That's a bakery. One block north is Cafe RX. Another block is Dunkin' Donuts. I personally believe that this is as retail as they get, just my own personal opinion. And then third, council has also heard, right across from this space is 5 acres of personally underutilized space. This is our recycling center / leaf pit. 5 acres of land in Tenafly, New Jersey. We're using it to deteriorate leaves. I won't stop trying to push us to be doing something better with that space, which is right across the street. So I can imagine lots of activity there. So we have to think through it. But the first point, they get to do whatever they want within their zoning. So I think we just have to be realistic. And if there is some level of retail, that'd be awesome. So that's my.
So you've heard the comments from the council, right? So perhaps following what the borough attorney said, when do you communicate with Matt and we get some more details and have have him come back again to talk some more? What do you guys?
Look,
Matt, go ahead. Go ahead. Jeff.
if we are giving up business or retail space, I'm not comfortable with that, and I think that was the gist of Councilmember Michael's second point of the famous triad.
It's famous already.
So I'm not sure that there's a lot to discuss if that's the ask is to give that up. I can't speak for the others, but speaking for.
Fair enough. So my comment to Matt was, I started with, you heard what the council's had to say. So it's kind of second bite at the apple. Do you want to discuss it one more time? And we see what happens.
I think we should just be efficient and realistic with. Again, this is you hear me say this a lot. If you're not proactive, you have to be reactive. Through the downtown redevelopment work we're doing and other conversations, I continue to be strongly believing that we should proactively, with our residents, come up with what we want and proactively go after businesses that find a space. Mr. Capizzi is absolutely right. It wasn't secret. Place was up for sale. No one else bought it, and this is where we are. We just have to do a better job, starting with me, on being more proactive and getting the stuff we want. That's where we are. But
Lauren, go ahead.
So it's funny, I'm glad that you guys are entering into this sale, but I had so many phone calls on this property. There were so many people interested in this property. I had businesses call me, I had developers call me, I had various people, and I said, I have no information on this. But I will tell you, there was enormous interest in this piece of property. I think I've raised a lot of stuff. My biggest concern, obviously, is I think the density here. I live here. I walk here all the time. I actually walk from my house to La Promenade, Cafe RX, Dunkin' Donuts, which is right past this every day. It's my walk, along with, 100 other people on the road. This is a huge walking area, actually. And so for me, a little place in Tenafly, I'd rather support a Tenafly coffee business right there on the corner, and truthfully, I actually get my coffee in town and then walk with it. But to say that this isn't appropriate for retail, I think is missing the boat. I think you've heard from at least 3 of us here who all agree on that point. I'm gonna just throw this out there. If we ever, and this is a no promise, but if we ever do just have our cannabis discussion here in Tenafly, this is actually zoned for that, strangely enough. Could be, could be. So there is actual revenue that the town can earn from this area, tax revenue for offsetting taxes to our residents. And to not have that opportunity to totally wipe that from this, is unfortunate. That's my first concern on the retail. My second one, obviously, I would prefer to see an age in place. I would prefer to see a senior focus. I would prefer to see that kind of residents be able to stay here and live here. We have that need. I completely agree. I'm a school parent. That's, my third concern.
So first of all, I'm glad that you received a lot of phone calls. I'm even happier that Mr. Reducey got the contract.
Yeah,
He's a well-established developer. He has a
like I
vision.
said,
He
right.
has a vision for the site that I'm sure is in keeping with all of the phone calls that you received and all of the great ideas these people have. And considering Mr. Reducey's experience, I'm confident that the people that called you were probably going to do a similar scheme of development. More important, let's talk brass tacks. If you want to see a cannabis facility here, let's talk.
Well,
We have a
it's not
contract on,
promised.
no, but we have a contract on the site. Like Councilman Michaels said, let's use efficiency of time here. So you have a captive audience, you have a developer that's ready, willing, and able. If you want to do cannabis, let's talk cannabis, because maybe that's a use category that works for us. So how do we have that conversation?
We're having it now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, details though. You know, just to throw out cannabis without
That's what I'm
saying
saying.
size and scale, warehousing, retail, you know, what are we talking about?
I'm not connecting the projects. They're two separate discussions. I'm not connecting them. But you know, if and
No, I
when
mean,
this
listen,
council moves on that,
Yeah,
it's
have
nice to
somebody that's,
know.
he certainly put together a team to do business, to generate ratables, not only for himself, but for the borough. So whether we do a mixed-use development, whether we do 100% flat unit development, or whether we do a cannabis facility, we're going to provide an increase in ratable for the site. So as far as that's concerned, we're a partner in that process.
Good.
We just need to know specifics on when we talk cannabis and throw it out there. You've caught me now, I'm on the hook. Reel me in and give me some details so
So
we can.
do you
so
want to come back to the council with a proposal that includes some of these,
Well,
some of these concepts?
I was not.
Obviously, there has to be conversations with our borough
Sure.
attorney where you can get some more details, but perhaps there's an idea.
I know you had a cannabis subcommittee.
We still do.
We still
So
do.
perhaps we can.
You want to communicate with them?
Sure,
Absolutely,
That would be
100%.
appropriate. And we can see what the ideas and perhaps there's some alignment there.
Make sense for you?
Always.
Banu, you good with that? Is he still there?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm here.
So
Um, Yes.
so it sounds like we're gonna have a conversation, borough attorney with the developer's attorney and connect with the cannabis committee and have some conversations about some other possibilities for this site in conjunction with some of their proposals here.
And just overall, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, another great thing is they want to invest, everyone wants to invest in Tenafly, which is a wonderful thing. So thank you
Yes.
for coming.
So I think the takeaway is two things. One, we've got to have some more conversations about these opportunities.
Sure.
And two, then we get you right back up here again.
Excellent. So Ms. Dade, should I correspond with you regarding the?
That's gonna be Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while we're talking about it, pick a day and time we'll meet.
Wednesday. I probably shouldn't do it here, but I'm happy to meet this week.
We'll work out a
This
time.
week.
Yeah,
We could,
work out a
We're
time.
gonna have the subcommittee meet first with
Oh,
them.
fine, sure. Understood.
Because
Then you'll report
then,
back to me and I'll always hear from one of you.
yep,
We'll connect this week.
I know where to find you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you,
all
Matt,
for
for
your time.
being too. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Back, ready for the conference, seat, Larry? Taking it. Oh, yeah. We're good, okay, right. Okay, Andy Hippolyte. How you doing, Andy? Okay, so we're gonna talk about two things while you're here, because you're here. Is the Franklin Street flooding, and we're gonna connect it up with the conversation about the library and the roof and the ceiling. Okay,
Okay, I can start, if you want, I can start with the flooding one first.
go ahead. Franklin Street flooding is first, so let's start with that.
I'm gonna look a little bigger picture. So as we go back 8, 9 months ago, Hurricane Ida comes, we have flooding all over town. You name the place, we had flooding. Residents coming in, going, I have flooding in front of my house, can't we put a bigger pipe in? Can we put more inlets in? Can we make the stream wider? And all that comes forward 8 months later, where we've had other storms since then. We call them a high-intensity, short-duration storm. And we hear the inlet in front of my house backed up, or my backyard flooded, or the swale is. Everybody looks for what is a short-term solution to a much bigger problem. You can look globally to climate change, to weather pattern changes, whatever you want to call it. If you have a flooding problem in front of your house, whether it's a stream, an inlet, or a pipe, if we make a change right there, it may solve the problem in front of your house, but that water goes somewhere else, so somebody downstream gets flooded. The example I use, if you go way up on Churchill, there's a huge hill there, you come down to the bottom, down by Downey, down by Angle, if I made all the pipes bigger up on Churchill and stopped the flooding up there, it just ends up at the bottom. So then now somebody else flooded. If we fixed the problem on the hill and then went down to Angle and fixed it, it just ends up in the next community, which is Englewood. If Englewood fixes theirs, it ends up in Teaneck. So as an engineer, we can't just always add an inlet, always make a pipe size bigger, always make a stream bigger. Sometimes we have authority to do that, but then there's higher authority, a county or the state or the DEP comes in. Kind of running parallel to this, even though it's a side discussion. Currently now the DEP is drafting and has issued new permit requirements for what's called your MS4 permit. So every municipality in New Jersey has a stormwater permit, as we call it. The permit renewal is up this December and it's a 4-year permit. Part of the new permit, which just came out, the draft came out, is every community in New Jersey has to map their stormwater system. So what comes out of mapping your stormwater system? Everybody connects together and eventually we all end up in an ocean somewhere. So it allows everybody to look at their systems as one unity and kind of do one of two things. One is anytime contamination hits your system, car accident, antifreeze hits the pavement, it goes to inlet. We now have a map for your police, fire, and emergency services that says we know where that now went. So that's one reason. The second reason is what happens when we have a hurricane on it. What happens when we have that 2-year storm that happens in like an hour instead of 2 hours or 3 hours, and we got flooding. So we can kind of address it at the same time. The desire for the community, being Tenafly, to address flooding problems like Franklin or wherever else, needs mapping. You need to map your entire system. That includes your piping, your bridge structure, your streams, map it all so we know what it is. Then we can apply an engineering solution. But at the same time that you want to do it, the DEP is telling you you're mandated to map it. So as of January 1st of this coming year, you're going to be mandated to map your system within a 3-year period. A community of your size to map it. Map it means somebody goes out with a handheld unit, pretty much this size or a little bigger, and goes inlet, bang, looks in, goes 18-inch pipe, 12-inch pipe, 12-inch pipe, and moves on, and they get it done. So now they have what's called a full engineering model of the whole system. It takes time. Your system would take about $150,000 of manpower and computer operation to do it. You can do it over 3 years, so it'll be $50,000 a year. What I would tell you is I would budget it starting next year and do it as per the state requirements. So you're lined up. Once you're done, we can now take that model and use that model to map and come up with solutions to solving flooding. I will tell you, there's never an easy solution to solving flooding. If there was an easy solution, I would be independently wealthy and not talking in front of the Tenafly council because it would be a solution. It's cool brew. Nah, you guys are great, but I'd be independently wealthy, as you know. But go ahead.
This is a ridiculous question, but is there any way to create a reservoir like Oradell has?
Maybe, that takes space. So the Oradell Reservoir is a drinking water reservoir.
Right,
That
but
goes back way before probably any of us were alive. It's been there forever. There's multiple reservoirs in that lane. And Viola, who was Suez, who was United Water, owns that. One of the solutions to solving stormwater problems, and there are other places in the state that we're working with along places like the Whippany River and the Rample River and the Rowdy River, they look at putting stormwater overflow areas that would take stormwater in case of these big storms, they kind of store it. Could that be done in Tenafly? Maybe, but without mapping it, I have no idea. It is a possibility.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So, no, I was gonna say, just in summary, I know I came here on a specific issue, which was Franklin. Just doing a little more research, also getting involved in the MS4 permit requirements that are just out this last 30 days. I believe the steps for it is to start budgeting money to map your system for 3 years. Do it in 3 parts, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Usually you start the lowest portion and work with the 2 upper portions in your case. Once you have the map, then you can then budget money for repairs and possible improvements to your system. You could do all that in 1 year. That's a lot of work and a lot of disruption and a lot of money in 1 year. The state, and I just literally a day ago got an email, the state is putting out a $10 million grant program towards the new MS4 permits. So I think, and I'm not trying to delay what you do, but if the state's gonna give you money to map your system or do some of these MS4 improvements, why not apply for them and try to get it instead of paying them for taxpayer dollars?
Is it issued yet, the paperwork? No.
They just put it literally, I was reading while I was sitting here, it just came out. So the documents are, I sent it to Kelsey Howard, our grants person, to try to find out the requirements to get you right online, first in line to try to apply for it.
All right, so I wasn't on the council when we did this years ago, but we did something on Dean, which didn't solve all the problems, but definitely mitigated. So I'd be curious to know, what do we do there that sort of worked that maybe we should be looking at on streets like Franklin? So, Mary, were you on the council?
That project had already been approved.
Okay.
It was was underway. And we put larger storm drains down there. That's what was put there. Yeah, it was that simple.
So they started, my understanding,
Yeah.
I wasn't an engineer, they started at the low point, went from the
Right.
Tenneco back up. They kind of get some more to move to the Tenneco faster.
Because that empties into the Tenneco.
That's the.
Right.
Right.
All right, so
Right, it doesn't.
it would
empty
be
into another
something to
storm drain
look
system.
at. It would be something to look at.
Yeah.
It definitely has helped Dean and was a huge asset.
Go ahead.
That's all I have on that.
Are they changing anything for homeowners?
No,
So,
there, what the DEP is angling towards is a stormwater utility. So they're also giving grants out for you to investigate how to form a stormwater utility for your municipality and actually have your own board and collect the tax credit.
we have discussed the tax collection on this, and you hadn't really seen it take place in other municipalities. Has
Not in
anyone
Not in-
initiated?
Outside of New Jersey, it takes
Yeah.
place.
Well, they're allowing us to collect the stormwater utility tax, right?
I believe so, yes.
You haven't seen it done yet.
So what is the actual function of the stormwater utility? Build and maintain systems?
So in the states where it has happened, municipalities, counties, when you leave New Jersey, states are different.
Yes.
In Bergen County has 70 municipalities.
Right,
In most states we deal in, that's one town.
right, right.
So these bigger towns and these bigger states collect this stormwater tax. They take it, they 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil your tax dollars. They store it kind of like you have a tree tax here or open space tax here, and they use it towards improvements to your storm system, whatever those improvements are. Rip wrapping, swale, new head walls, they use it towards improvements. In states that use it, it's worked effectively. The controversy in New Jersey is and I guess it's not politics, but I hear from other towns is, you already collect a lot of tax money, why don't you use the money you collect to fix the storms?
Right, right.
I don't know the answer.
The difference, I think, is that it's a designated amount of money. What I was just saying to Jeff is that, we actually wind up spending so much money on overtime and DPW time and storm cleanup. And this tax is just designated so that you're more proactive and constant maintenance. And it can only be used for stormwater and cleanup.
It would be similar to the NJDOT grants to gas tax. The gas tax is used to repair roads.
Quick
Or
question for you. How much of our problem is maintenance as opposed to the capacity of the system?
maintenance
Good
is
question.
is a small part.
Say that again?
Maintenance is a small part. Listen, in New Jersey, we deal in 300 or 400 municipalities. Your maintenance is good. Your DPW does a great job. They maintain the system. Not all our communities do. Your problem is capacity. So think about it. So if the Tenneco backs up, how do I get water?
You don't.
So once it's backed up, I can't get water in. Somebody said to me with the Bliss Avenue culvert, why can't we just make it bigger? Well, the bridge downstream from us already got washed away. So as each bridge backed up, it just backed water up and then nobody's water could get in there. Could we make it bigger? We could, but the state won't let you make it. So you have the kind of the effect of the downstream communities can't get more water because it's not fair to them because then you're flooding them. If you let all your water go, or you, in your case, Englewood and Teaneck, right, you get all your water.
Okay, so let's talk about Franklin Street specifically a little bit.
So it's specifically as a capacity problem. So that the system in that area can handle these high intensity, short duration storms.
So to Councilman Grossman's point before, you know, how do we look at to determine whether there's something we can do over there beyond maintenance that can help, like like what we did on Dean Drive 15 years ago did? Not that you have that answer off the top of your head, but
It's somewhat the same answer. I'm not trying to avoid the question. We'd have to go into the area, really specifically survey that area for the stormwater systems that are there in place. Find out where they're discharging to and say, can we make an improvement that's gonna give them some relief? In most cases, it's upsizing the pipe while increasing storage under the road at the same time, because you can't send all that water to the next drainage basin. Because then now they'll get water they never had. So you get this big pipe under the ground that's really flat, that'll have an outlet structure down the road that backs water up in this pipe and stores it under the road until the storm is over.
That was my question. Is there any storage capacity, anything that we could build that,
Okay?
stores the water and slows down the flow?
so along with this new state regulation where we're mapping the system, does it make sense to start in an area like Franklin Street? In other words, we wouldn't start at the top of the hill, we should be starting at the bottom of the hill to understand how to solve the problem there.
Normally, the process is map it, break into the drainage areas, start at the lowest point and work your way back up. Because you, kind of look at Tenafly as the low point, with two high points each side. Everything comes down to the middle. Basically, everything comes down towards the Tenneco for the most part. And you have to start down at the bottom and work your way back to both hills.
How much hypothetically would a storage unit like that cost?
So the non-engineering term is a lot. Because what happens is, under your roads, I have gas, I have water, I have electric, I have fiber optics, I have sewer.
Mhm.
If I go in there and put a 40-inch pipe or 60-inch pipe under there, I need the space for that, so everything has to move. The disruption to this town, the street is enormous, and even it's a long time consuming. And it's expensive, and then once it's in,
That's one,
now you have to take care of it.
right, that's one street that's, multiplied by the entirety of the valley.
And that may be a good spot solution for there, but when you look more global, you may say, wow, if I just would have made the stream have a better profile and cross section that it dumps into, the water could have gotten there and it would kind of make that. So all what I'm suggesting is sometimes the short-term solutions are not the right solution.
Right. So it sounds like mapping is the first,
And you have to do it anyway.
So we have to,
Required.
so what's the next step with that? What do we,
So I think there's two steps. One is, I'll give Susan and Jimmy a budget number, which I already told you, the budget was $50,000 a year for 3 years in your capital budget. At the same time, we'll come to you to apply under this new governor's grant to get the money to pay for it, so you're not paying. Plus, maybe they'll pay you for some upgrades and improvements.
let's jump on that. We put a proposal together, maybe we can get some grant money and
Exactly.
not have to wait till next June or May to start it up.
I'll know a lot more by your next council.
Okay, Jimmy, you got that. Go ahead, Lauren, please.
So we actually have some of our residents here who live in that area. And I know this mapping project, I'm all for it, have to do it anyway, but always all for stormwater management and improvements. But in the meantime, we have to help our residents and these homeowners. How do we do this? What options do we have?
I don't necessarily have a good answer for you. Because you have 20 other Franklin locations in town.
Oh, at least.
You don't have one, you might have more than 20. I mean, the number of areas that have undersized pipes, streams, runoff. As you know, just look at our Hurricane Ida repairs that follow down the streets. You know all the locations that could get destroyed during a big storm like this.
Mhm.
Everything gets backed up. So there's no one easy solution.
Wait, hold on one sec. Hold on one second, sir. The council has to, Venu had his hand up.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
hi, Andrew. Nice to hear you on the subject. It's an important subject. Just you were talking about the $10 million state grants. This is the state grants for basically all of New Jersey, right? $10 million.
It is. The governor came out with a plan to institute $10 million for grants to municipalities of New Jersey.
And how much, could you foresee us applying for and or getting? I
As
mean,
of
it's
now, I
hard to
can't
tell,
tell you,
I
'cause it
know,
just
but
came, the publication just came out a few days
And
ago, so, we have to look into what's available. I think they're looking to give you grants for the new MS4 permit, which is the mapping component, and or the creation or investigation into forming a storm utility, is what I said.
right,
So I
so,
was just asking our lawyer here. Go ahead, Vanu.
no, so just a question on the MS4 permitting. Do we know approximately how much that would be, that the grant would potentially cover it? Because this would be a massive project, right?
Well, I guess if the state did it evenly, if we took 10 million divided by 577 communities, we'd get about $17,500.
Barely, yeah.
They don't have Mayor Zinna as their mayor.
Or Jimmy as their BA.
So it's going to be incumbent to put something together in writing so we can understand what we need to do.
Correct.
Mhm.
This is
Go ahead,
another
Lauren.
question. Some of the homeowners on the, I don't know, on the upper part of East Clinton are actually getting the runoff from Englewood Cliffs, right? Off 9W, it's coming down. Is there anything to do up there in temporary basis, permanent basis? Any coordination with surrounding municipalities,
Englewood Cliffs above you.
right?
Their water comes downhill.
Yes, it does.
Their water comes in kind of three directions. This comes kind of westward. They have, believe it or not, a little bit that goes north and a lot that goes south. They're on top of the hill, so you're gonna get their water. You get your water, you send it to Englewood and Teaneck. Lower, whoever lives the lowest gets the most water. And you're doing 101.
I think one of the things we need to do, though, is be in coordination with the surrounding municipalities and make sure everyone's getting this map done.
They have to, huh?
No, but I'm saying, that they should be in coordination with us, like, we should be connecting.
Our state senator's office is coordinating all the, not all the mapping, they're coordinating a meeting with all the mayors and some of the council members about, we're waiting for the scheduling of it to start talking about exactly what Andy is saying, because we can't act without Englewood acting and without Leonia acting. It's all the same. It's all the same system, and the state is starting to understand that. Or at least it's getting to our level that they're starting to understand it.
It's definitely coming down to municipal
Right,
level.
right. Vanu, please.
Yeah, quick question on, the property that we had discussed about Dean, on Dean Street, what we call the Clinton Inn property. How much of that should we look into after they've laid the groundwork and everything like that for that? Does it make sense to do this permit before something materializes there, or should we wait for that to come first? Because I can imagine that would make a drastic change to that specific area. That's the other side of Franklin.
I think that,
Is the immediate development was just here?
No,
No.
there's a proposed redevelopment of rebuilding the hotel at the Clinton Inn, as well as taking the two lots in the parking lot to the south for a development of an assisted living. But they would have to comply with the new upgraded standards that went into effect in 2020, 2021 already, the stormwater for individual sites. They're not necessarily, Councilman, looking to change pipes underground that are in existence to other areas of the municipality. So I believe these, and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, these are independent
Correct.
things that are happening. We have stormwater rules for development that are above ground, and now we're looking from the state level, they're requiring all municipalities to look underground and see what's there.
Right.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is there will be an impact from that onto, onto the project that Andy's talking about. And, does it make sense to actually do this? Will we have to do a second one of these after that building has been built, let's say?
Do you mean the mapping project?
The mapping and, anything that would come from that.
This question comes up a lot in most municipalities. Does a new development that's being built, doesn't matter where it is, what community, does that development have an adverse effect on the properties downstream because they're now brand new, maybe has more impervious area, is it gonna send more water downstream? In New Jersey statute, the answer is no. New Jersey doesn't allow you to send more water downstream. They make you take the 2-year storm, the 10-year storm, and the 100-year storm and reduce your off-site runoff to the 2, the 10, and the 100. So they have less impact. The question is what's the overall volume? So they look at rate, not volume. And the state statutes, they're looking at dealing with possible rate and volume. But the issue the state of New Jersey has is they're pushing a lot of development through affordable housing development. And if they deal with volume at the same time deal with rate, then New Jersey will cease to have development, will stop all development, all state of New Jersey. It's nothing they can. So there's a push forward now. I don't know the answer. This is at people at a much higher level than me. But in general, when the Clinton does a redevelopment, they'll send no more water off site in any storm than they do now. It'll be the same or reduced.
Theoretically, it should be reduced.
It should be reduced, theoretically.
That's
You have a question, Adam? Okay, so let's move on to ready to move on to the library? Do you have another question, Lauren?
No, thank you.
Ready to move on to the library?
Library.
I am. Go back a little history. We had the library project, which was a facade project. In the facade project, we had the roof of the library in there. So there was a section of the library roof that needed repair. There was, I think it was $159,000, somewhere about that was budgeted 2 years ago to do the
Yep.
roof. When we had the architect come in for the facade part of the project, we said, you're here, can you go up on the roof, look at the roof from the top, the underside, do some floors, give us some details because we don't know much about this roof. When they looked at the underside of the roof for the library, and probably this part of the building too, is a fiber cement board. So normally a roof is wood sheeting with another wood sheeting on top of it potentially, with insulation or the tack paper, and then your roof. This one has fiber cement board, insulation, and roof.
Squirrels love to.
Right, so everybody goes, what's the big deal? And you say, okay, great, strip the roof off and replace it. I'm now ripping a roof on top of a fiber cement board that's, I don't know, 50, 60 years old, and may or may not be able to handle that replacement or not handle that replacement. So any roofer coming in is gonna assume so much replacement of that fiber cement board, which is very expensive. All the insulation has to come off, 100% of it, and the entire roof has to come off. So we went to bid for this project, and lo and behold, you were just about $1 million to replace the library roof, which was the library roof, the McCandless room, and kind of that community center. That was $700,000 more than originally thought when they did the budget back a number of years ago. I don't really have any better answer for you other than you either have to go out to bid again and try to get new numbers. I mean, the cost of materials is still high. It's coming down, but it's still high. We were just doing a replacement in kind. Could I look at other options and see if there's other options for it? I can. We didn't do that because that wasn't what we were asked to do. I don't know if there's other options, but when we do roofs,
Another option is to accelerate building a new, better, bigger, stronger library for our residents. That's a better answer. That's putting $1 million into something that we know is broken. There's a word for that, I'm sure.
What was the alternative you just,
So when we look at roofs with ourselves and an architect, we have a number of vendors we use. So there are multiple kinds of roofs you can put on buildings with a lot more than just an asphalt shingle roof. I don't have an answer for you today, but I can engage multiple vendors to say, do we have a better solution that's here? To see if there is a better solution that's cheaper. If it's a replacement in kind, you have a number.
so the question becomes, the simple question I would ask is, okay, so it's $900,000 to replace in kind. Is there a solution that would replace it for $300,000 and throw the existing roof in the garbage and just a brand new sort of system?
I don't know that yet. We can investigate that. So we can get vendors to come in and answer that question. Bring in the people who do roofs, whether it be metal roofs or different types of shingle roofs or whatever, they have to come in and look at it and say, yes, we can put our product here, or no, we can't.
Lauren, please.
If we bonded for a new building and we actually envisioned a new community room, a new McCandless room, a new teen center, a wonderful new library, you know, what happens with that process? Is that something that, you know, you've worked with us before, that's possible to be built in a couple years?
Like a rip down, replace, take building down, replace it.
Curious.
So, right, the going price I'm looking at, there's multiple communities I'm looking at right now for new community
I
centers.
mean,
Big ones, like 40,000 square foot plus.
mhm.
The going rate for a new building is about $450 to $500 a square foot. So you pick your square footage, multiply by that number, you have your replacement.
Whether it's a library, community center, police
But
station.
wouldn't, I would think, you could tell me I'm wrong, that if there was a single thing, and I know the mayor, we're putting together coming out of last meeting, we're putting together a committee that's proactively looking at grant opportunities. I would think a library, if there was ever something that would be easier to get a grant, a library or a, you know, motorcycle place, I would think a library is a pretty good one. The state would want to help with a library.
Libraries, firehouses,
Yeah.
police departments, there are grants available for them. It depends on the timing and who's offering it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of those grants come more federally. There are grants.
I think that'd be a great first one that this
Yeah.
committee that's
Yep.
together should be doing for us.
Lauren, please.
I have no sense of size and dimension. How many square feet do you estimate the building that's there now? The library McCandless Teen Center unit,
George, I don't know the answer. If I had to guess, it's like 20,000 square feet.
20,000. Okay, just because
Fine.
you had given me a number, but I don't know what we're, you know.
Does anyone from the library know that precise answer? Julie?
Wow. You should totally be an engineer.
It's
Thanks,
probably
Joey.
closer to almost 30,000 square feet.
Okay. Okay, so
I just don't guess, too.
I was thinking 5 to 7, yeah. You know, and if we went second floor, we go more than that.
So I will tell you that from a perspective of building, you'll always get a lot more dollars for your value when you go to a second floor.
Yeah.
When you go outward, you need more foundation. When you go upward, your foundation is very low. So it's some money involved to make the foundation better, but I can always go upward easier.
Any of these other communities bonding for these long-term 100-year bonds?
So that, right now in the borough of Montvale,
No,
we're looking at 25,000 to 40,000 square foot community center.
Mhm.
Numbers skew because it does involve an outdoor pool with it, which is like $4 million, but they're looking at 15 to 20 million dollars. And they're going to, because the community center involves senior center in it, they're gonna look to apply for some grants for that project.
Well, I did propose that one for Tenafly. It's not going very far. But,
And they're
you know.
using 30-year bond time.
Let me go back to what's happening though for right now, because obviously we have a lot to consider at this table. But for right now, the library still has squirrels coming in, there's still moisture coming in. We obviously want to preserve our books, our spaces. Is there some sort of solution that we can apply to the ceiling right now to just insulate or ensure that that space is protected? While we all debate the roof and the new building.
From a roof perspective, if you're getting leaking in your roof, the only thing you could do is hire a roofing contractor to come in and try to shore it up. They have to just go shingle by shingle.
Mhm.
They know what they're doing. If you have a leak in your house, they'll find it. They'll go shingle by shingle, find loose shingle, nails that popped out, they'll find everything. Just takes time and money. But it's a lot cheaper than replacing the whole roof, but it's only a short-term solution.
When was the last time, do we know, when was the last time somebody was on that roof to do what you're suggesting?
I don't know.
We did bring someone in, didn't we?
We have over the years, spot here and there.
I feel like we've had this conversation.
I mean, if you're the engineer, if you are looking at, say, ripping that building down, this Andy steps out in his own personal world and says, "If I'm gonna rip a building down, I'm not gonna pay $1 million for the roof.
Right.
I'm gonna bring a roofer in, have DPW get a roofer to come in and repair the crap out of it everywhere you can to hold it over until you salvage it. $47 million. I will tell you that the prices of materials are coming down. In June alone, wood dropped 50%.
Yeah, I just saw.
Concrete is dropping. Gasoline being so high is tempering that drop, but it is still dropping. When gasoline finally comes down, all these prices will drop, and so that roof can go 40% lower. We've seen this happen in my career, as a young guy, more 3 or 4 times, where gas goes way up, inflation follows it, prices are high, and then once they fall off, it falls off a ledge, it goes down, it's dirt cheap.
But again, I think we have to quickly, I don't think it's that hard to actually decide as a council what we want to do. But for me, I don't understand. If you told me it was only $500,000 instead of $1 million, I still believe that's $500,000 of waste. I would put a tarp over it, get us to take some action, like, it shouldn't be hard. In 2 months, we should be able to decide as a team that the library is kind of important to our community. Pick a number, 6 months to put a design together. By that time, rates are gonna be even lower from, materials and everything. I know nothing about construction. It takes 2 years to build something. But the first step, you just have to take a decision. I don't see $250,000 is worth it. Just put a blue tarp over it and let's build ourselves a new.
So there's 3 points. There's 3 points that
I
we
like
need
it
to do.
already.
All right, 3 steps. One is what's the repair situation, right? How do we go up, send someone up there to repair it, to stop the water from coming in, whatever that means, okay? The second thing is Andy finds out, does a little homework on what if we rip the whole thing off, throw it in the garbage, what is the replacement cost? And then some serious number crunching about a new building. And what's the total square footage over there now, with all those buildings combined, times 500, and then the council will understand the magnitude of what they're dealing with.
Would
Those
you-
are the 3 things we need.
Can I just add a couple of
Go ahead.
steps?
You're gonna add a 4th step?
Well, just some in-between steps.
Oh, in
I
between.
think some in-between steps that are important to discuss are, if you were in Knoxville and break down and rebuild it, is it gonna be rebuilt right there? If it is gonna be rebuilt right there, are you gonna shut it down for 18 months, because that's about.
No, we would have to find another home
So
for
they
it.
need another home for it.
Right.
And then in your ultimate process, not that I wanna throw a twist in it, the library is just at the end of the road now. It's only so far from there to the police department, which is basically zero. You just continue that piece in, because this middle piece ain't the greatest place in the world either.
No, this is,
Right, so I would say you're really looking at a project from the back of the police department. down there. That's my opinion, I'm just, I don't want you to get too far in the processing of what we forgot to mention.
in other words, vaguely what you're saying is leave the library there, rebuild it here next to the police.
No, he's just saying
No, that's not-
rebuild
that's-
the
so that-
current hall.
that's an
not
option.
the whole thing.
That's actually an option I didn't think of, that's an option too, so you knock the library down, rebuild it, have the library here, when the library's out here, knock this down and rebuild it.
Well, we also have to be careful of project creep. You know,
Yeah.
1 minute we're building.
Personally, I care
Yeah.
very much about resident facing
Yes, the
stuff.
library is what matters.
I don't mind that we don't have a state-of-the-art council chamber.
Right, we can survive here right.
But I will say, the teen center needs a revamp, the floor is.
That's
is
that
having
same
to-
area.
Dude,
That's
that's-
resident-
that's
resident-
Right, I mean,
building.
all of that is for residents, for the children, for
Yeah,
everything.
that's all part of the same building.
I've had this discussion, I know with you,
Yeah.
Mayor, that I've been for this for a long time. The only thing that we have to keep in mind, like when you say, hopefully 2 years or whatever, I think you've learned anything in government times 2 or 3. So how long did it take for Dumont to redo their borough hall?
Ooh, well, that
That's
project.
a bad project. Hey, like,
Yeah, that
hey,
could go-
I know.
big problem.
With a lot of cost overruns
Yeah,
and
a
a
lot.
lot of time. So I want to do this, I think.
Well, your better question is, what did it take our police station to build? 24
That
months?
was a bad one too.
That
But
was,
what
a-
did it take?
I would
how
say
about a good one?
regular
Hold on,
project
hold on,
takes-
hold on.
A regular project takes about a year and a half to plan. Get your funding in place and plan it, design it, get everybody to buy in, get the library boards involved, the mayor and council involved. And then it takes you another 2 years to build it between bidding and building it. And I will tell you, that means that you're gonna go to bid and hope you have like the contract. If you don't have the contract, you have a Dumont or name the next municipality that had that contractor.
Yep.
You have to go with the lowest responsible bidder.
Responsible.
Every
keyword.
journey starts with the first step.
Okay, so Jimmy, we have a roadmap there. So
We got started.
So
we can, right, we've got a roadmap to start understanding repair, alternate roof, and then obviously the new project. Go ahead.
can I ask if there's any opportunity for anyone from the library to ask?
Yeah, that was gonna be the next thing,
Okay.
because we're here talking about the library with the entire library, team here. Somebody from the library, do we have a spokesperson? Julie, who wants to speak for the library?
Okay.
Hello? Andy will get that for you.
Andy's really
Not
tall.
I'm Kathleen Cook. I'm the president of the Tenafly Library, where I think many of you know me already. We sent, as you're aware, a letter that the board sent dated July 20 that describes the deplorable condition of the roof. And there are indeed pictures of it in there that show, they're recently taken pictures that show the condition of the roof. And when Julie has asked how old the roof is, we can't even get an answer on it. And the problem is that that roof has really created what is, I realize it's a tried expression, but it's an existential crisis for the library. Highlighted by the fact that on July 18th, rather, we had an enormous intrusion of water in one area. And one of our staff members went to try to save materials that were under, otherwise they would have gotten destroyed. Fortunately, he was able to move out of the way before these tiles, again, there are pictures of it in the letter, came crashing down. He was not hurt, he was able to get out of the way in time, however, he was soaked. This was not, unfortunately, an isolated event. We had another one with tiles falling down in May, and on February 14th, we had tiles falling down and just barely missing one of our employees. Now, I do want to compliment the council for having spent money to do the ephes removal. Ever since that's been done, we have not had the intrusion of our squirrels. Rocky J squirrel has not shown up in months. Because we had them running around in the ceiling and also falling through onto the floor. Now, I have heard, you all talking about the project with the multi-purpose, multi-user project. I think it's a wonderful idea, but we're certainly very, very concerned about how long is this going to take? Because we need to be able to operate in the here and now. Our town deserves having a library. That's we dread every time there's a rainstorm that there's going to be more damage, people hurt, patrons hurt, children. So it is a real problem. So if something is, and I agree with you, Councilman, that anything seems to take far longer when it's a municipal project. So it could be years down the road. So we really have to deal with the here and now.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so the mayor had invited me to a meeting a few months ago, and I know Julie was there, and I forget who all was there. And one of the things we discussed at that meeting was at least taking the ceiling tiles down so that they couldn't fall. It would also possibly make it easier to identify where some of the water's coming in, because the tiles are just decorative and more stores are going to that look anyway, and libraries should follow. But has anything been done on that, towards
not
that?
at this
And what
stage.
would it take?
Yeah, I had a conversation, pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
We understood.
Right.
That they're not merely just decorative.
Right.
that they have
Fire
fire
retardant?
So the engineer and I, Andy, do you want to speak to that a little bit, to the extent I realize you haven't done any homework on it? The whole issue of the tiles, and is there fire resistance there, or can they just all come down?
So I have to talk to the fire inspector, to find out those tiles have a issue. They're probably fire rated because they have fire rated, but the under ceiling is fiber cement, right? So you have a fire protection. But again, your fire subcode issue. Usually when you put up a ceiling panel, you have a fire rate, because they're there. It's like you do a 2-hour rate, you remove them.
But once you talked about it being the fiber cement, I would
Yes.
think
Right,
that
so it's-
that's rated forever.
Right.
So maybe this is something we shouldn't just,
Yeah, all firms are fire stuff.
Along with
Maybe I'll answer
the
it.
cost of sending someone on the roof with the repairs, figuring out what that's gonna cost us.
Can we get them in this week? So it's supposed to rain all week, by next week.
Yeah, just a couple items. We do send, our roof repair to go up there, so I'll touch base with maintenance tomorrow to see what the status has been during, since the writing of this and since the heavier rainstorms. And that is my understanding too about a fire subcode, prohibiting us from taking down the tiles. I could get the exact reasoning
Yeah.
or.
Yeah,
concern,
'cause
but you
based
can
on the-
also-
Wait, come up, Julie, please.
Thank you.
All I had to say was that Mike Cassidy told me that we couldn't take the ceiling tiles down because it was a fire hazard. So you might want to talk to him, but he's the one who told me we couldn't do it.
All right, so we need to do more homework on that.
Yeah, again, I spoke directly with the fire subcode official, but I could speak with them.
yeah, especially given what's above the
Yes.
tiles, I think they need to be aware of that. Because if we can do something to make it safer immediately, we should push for that and not just take any quick answer.
So we get clarity on the 3 steps there.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions on the library?
So because I'd like to move on a decision, I'd like to come up with a subcommittee on a library plan here. I mean, let's
Well,
flesh this out and
So
get this.
first thing, we got couple of things going on. We got the repairs, and he's gonna present, what's the story with the roof and a different type of roof.
Right.
If the council wants to do a committee on a new library in conjunction with the library board, we can certainly,
Well, it would be
arrange
the
that.
library, it would be the teen center, it'd be the McCandless room, which is the borough and rec.
Yeah, we
and
can include-
Possibly even a senior center area.
Mayor, if I may
Go ahead.
recommend, until we get, some recommendations from Andy, maybe when we do, maybe we could reconvene in the DPW engineering group and just
let's do it that way.
reconvene in that way.
makes a
And
lot
then,
of sense.
then from there, we could kind of see what the responses are and go from there if we need to do a deeper dive.
All right, so, guys,
Sorry,
so
we're getting excited over
I
it.
know you're getting excited, so we're gonna just, all right, so what we'll do with the next step we'll have, once Andy has his report to us, to Jimmy, we'll put together the DPW committee to have a first conversation about what are we really talking about with new construction before we start getting everyone involved with everyone's asks. Okay, so we can set some ground rules and parameters, basics like where does it want to be built, all that sort of stuff. So that'll be the first step in your request, okay? Fair enough?
Yes, I would like maybe Jimmy to reach out with the people who currently have these spaces, so the library board,
Yeah,
recreation, the teen center, and
yeah. And
which is
communicate the road we're
recreation,
going
of
down.
course, but, and just, I'd like them, of course, to be part of the process.
Of course. Okay. Anything else about the library from council members?
Let's see if there's more comments.
Is there any other comments from library board members or friends of the library? Come up, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Jin Wu, Lemon County Road, and I'm staff member of the plan of the library. To represent I was mentioned received letter, so by the week, so a few weeks ago, basically, I near got hit by a piece of ceiling tile that fell down. It was large burst of water. While avoiding getting hit, I think it mentioned things. And it's not really the matter of water per se, just being water. The library should not have been in the state that the situation was happening in the first place. So, I mean, as we discussed, the situation with the roof, there remains tiles are falling down. And I don't just visit the library, I work in
environment. I witness the issues daily. And I'm speaking as someone who lives and works in this town, and that's a Tenafly resident. And I just wanted to make, I just look for that, that we can do that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. We hear it. Thank you.
Hi, Marilyn Friedman, 49 Buff Road, Tenafly resident and taxpayer for 38 years, and I'm presently the president of the Tenafly Library Friends. We are here tonight because we truly love our library. The incredible adult and children programs, concert series, library lending and reference services, and countless other ways it serves Tenafly. A recent survey showed that 80% of Tenafly residents have a library card. That's really a tremendous statement about our residents and a clear indication of how integral the library is to our town. The Tenafly library staff is always helpful, patient, cheerful, and hardworking. And with this pandemic, resourceful and flexible. Yet we are asking them to work in an unsafe environment, one that is hazardous to their health and safety. None of us wants that for them. Needless to say, we want everyone to be safe and comfortable in using the library. Right now, it is a dangerous situation for everyone. We are asking you to immediately fix the roof and make the necessary repairs before someone gets hurt and/or we lose the book collection due to water damage. A replacement situation that we do not want to do or have the funds to do. We truly feel that this is a dire situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, David, how you doing?
Checking out other council meetings.
It is an absolute pleasure to see a functioning council.
We all thank you for that.
My name is Dave DiGregorio. I'm a councilman in Inglewood Cliffs. Worked in Tenafly High School for starting my 27th year. Run the high school library there, among other things. And I concur with all of the people that have spoken prior about the library. It is a very human-centered institution, if you want to call it that. Library is so important, and it has to match the interests and the desire for knowledge of all the residents here. So I hope that I would love to go up on the roof and try to find the hole, but if you get a wise person up there to patch the hole, I hope that in the future, there'll be a great vision for what's to come for this community. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the, yes, please.
Alita Kratnoff, 27 West Clinton, Tenafly, New Jersey, resident in Tenafly since 1976. I've heard wonderful presentations here tonight. I've heard wonderful comments from the audience. The thing that strikes me is that we are operating like a bureaucracy that takes a long time. I understand that. My concern is as a citizen of Tenafly. If I were a parent here, I would be so upset, so irate, that it has dragged on for months, for years, actually.
If it were my child sitting in that library with one of those things coming down, hitting him in the head, maybe knocking his glasses into his eyes, if there's an injury to a child, and there is that danger, and to say I understand that you have to go through this, but step one, step two, it takes days, it takes weeks, it takes months, it takes years. In the meantime, what is going to happen to the people in the library, the employees and the people who frequent it, thinking they're safe? I ask you to consider this and to try to, how shall I say, speed up the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Alita, thank you for that. So I have a question actually about something Alita said. So I'm a little confused, and maybe this is a Wendy question, or maybe this is a Jimmy question. Is the library board itself allowed to hire a contractor for anything internal? Like, how does that work?
For anything in charge,
Are they allowed to do that?
I'm sure they contract with,
So,
what do you mean? Yeah, go ahead.
so, you know,
believe
we're
the
talking about the
building is-
ephes and the roof, but I'm talking about, now we're talking about something internal, and we're trying to make it faster.
The borough owns the building.
owns the building.
So the borough owns the building, but can the library make minor repairs within the building? Can they fix up anything? Can they
Can they
repaint?
call a guy to repaint the library? And
Can they
inside of
call a
it?
guy to, yeah,
Repainting is
excuse- I'm not-
different, is different than.
because that's
roofing.
surfing. No, I'm not talking about the roof, definitely not. I'm talking about, for example, ceiling tiles. At what point are they allowed to like assist or facilitate? Maybe it's faster to go through them. I'm just brainstorming here, everyone.
Jimmy, go ahead.
To indirectly answer, they want to do these things, they're willing, and they're sort of asking, but they're not doing it until that's done. If I think it's safe
Until
to
the
say
roof
that.
is done?
Roof's done.
So they're, so they're allowed to.
I mean, there's some coordination, but it's.
That's my
Without the roof being done, they're not, they've
But
expressed and stated that they want to, but they won't until that roof is.
So hypothetically, if we said, after the fire inspector looked and DPW, Mike Classy looks, you're allowed to take down the ceiling tiles. Can the work get done through the board, or does it have to come before us again for a whole nother meeting discussion? Do you see where I'm going?
So it depends on the issue. If we're spending X amount of dollars on repairing the roof of the borough property, the borough is going to do that, right?
But no, the ceiling tiles aren't part of the roof. I mean, they're in the ceiling, but they're separate and distinct.
So it would all depend whether it's something that can affect structural integrity. If it's gonna be something that can affect structural integrity, we wouldn't want anyone touching our buildings.
Let's use the ceiling tiles. Does that affect structural integrity?
That is
We have
outside
this
of my.
debate over the, we have this debate over
Is Andy still here?
the fire credibility, the fire issues. with-
Right, I said, once those get resolved, to facilitate, to Alita's point, to cut the red tape.
Quite frankly, that might be a Bob Burns question.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But if they were replacing shelving, cabinetry, furniture, that's.
Right,
all-
those are fixtures.
They can do that as they see fit.
If the ceiling tile become deemed decorative,
Again, that would be something we should probably check first.
I
with the
guess,
construction
yeah,
code.
and Julie should coordinate that with Jimmy.
because
You
again,
heard that, Julie?
we don't meet again till September.
My understanding of the law is that we can do it. But yes,
Right, right.
Especially if it's a safety issue, I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can move on that.
Right?
Hmm.
You know, but what we just want.
I know, but while we're, clearly the roof is gonna take a lot more bureaucracy, to Alita's point. And I would hate to leave this condition ongoing until that's resolved. Mhm.
It's now, look at it, it's now water state.
Mhm.
So,
It's kind of, it doesn't really help. the maintenance staff has been, right away, it's just that it doesn't.
All right, it sounds like we're all on the same page. We're kind of rowing in the same general direction.
Move it faster.
Yeah, we got to move it faster.
Okay.
Okay, Julie?
Thank you.
Jimmy will keep you posted on the next steps, what's happening this week, okay? All right. Ready to move on to the next item, guys? Ladies? Okay, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Councilman.
And I think the Tenafly Library Friends, the book club, you did what, 4,600 books last week? It's fabulous, thank you. Okay, Michael, come step up to the microphone. Raise that up a little bit. Thank you for being here. Okay, Michael Liang is you're a patrol leader, a Troop 86?
Senior patrol leader.
Senior patrol leader. And he's gonna give us high-level presentation summary of his Eagle Scout project that he's proposing, and then council will be able to ask him questions. So why don't you tell your story?
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Michael Liang. I live at 256 Castle Drive, Anglo Cliffs. I'm the current senior patrol leader of Tenafly's Troop 86, and today I'm here to talk about my Eagle project. So my project overall is an informative kiosk that will let the people and communities outside of Tenafly know what services and what service organizations Tenafly has to offer. The kiosk includes a neat presentation of signs and logos from the service organizations and the services in Tenafly. So not every community and town out there has multiple service organizations such as the Rotary and the Elks Lodge. And this kiosk would be the most effective way to display the service organizations this town has to offer. That is also why the kiosk can also be viewed as a marketing device for Tenafly to out-of-towners. The kiosk idea is not unusual and is commonly used by other towns to display the service organizations that help and do so much for the communities. Now for the location, the original proposed location at East Clinton and 9W is preferred, but the location at the northwest corner in Franklin, as Mr. Homsey suggested and recommended, is perfectly fine and will definitely work as well. Therefore, the finalized location is really up to members of the council to decide and finalize.
Sorry, say the location again. Franklin and what?
Northwest corner of Franklin Street and West Clinton, yeah.
West Clinton.
And if you don't mind, I have a poster that kind of just shows.
Sure, absolutely, show the poster.
So as you can see, this is the conceptual design of the kiosk. The kiosk, as I said, Ms. Homsey has all the dimensions and he can share them with you, but this is just the design. As you can see, these are actual logos from the possible service organizations, from the actual service organizations in Tenafly. For example, you have the Rotaries Club, you have the Elks Lodge, you have the Welcome Committee, and you have the Volunteer Ambulance, etc. And overall, it's just going to be displayed. The signs are going to be displayed in a 5x4 manner. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5x4.
Adam, can you see it?
Yes.
Oh,
There are pictures, yeah.
Okay, Manu, you have this in black and white. This is the same exact thing, just in color.
Just
Okay, got
Turn
it.
around.
show.
So now,
Thank you. Yes, I saw it in the black and white. Thank you. Yep.
Go ahead, Michael. Okay,
Mayor, if I just.
go ahead.
Yeah, so the original proposal was reviewed by me, Michael Cassidy, and Bob Burns. So really just, as he indicated, he provided us the technical specifications to ensure that it would withstand some weather elements. It's safe, so it met all that, and as he indicated, we were able to agree on a different location to be in line with the borough code. It wasn't his first preferred location, but his willingness, through conversations and him understanding that it has to be in line with code and safety regulations, we've come up and he's agreed to do it on West Clinton, Franklin, and again, everything is checked out internally. So it's up to the council now if we want to move forward.
Jeff?
Isn't that one of the 4 areas or whatever that we do designate, though, that billboards can go up?
Yes.
Okay. And that's one of the problems that we have with the East Clinton 9W site, was the exact same issue. So we've just moved it from one spot to another. It wasn't just about people being able to see it at whatever speed they were going. It was that those are one of only 4 spots in town that we make available.
You know, one of the things we could do is the council does not get involved over what community-based sign or political goes in what physical location. It's kind of whoever comes first serve, whoever comes first gets the spots, and then it just kind of feeds from there. Perhaps the council, unlike those other things, we pick and choose exactly where it should be, leaving space for the traditional signs that are there, right? Because this is gonna be
What's the
somewhat.
dimensions of this? I'm sorry.
So 4 by 8 feet is gonna be the
Yep.
size of the display, like the plywood here.
Right.
And the poles are gonna be 10 feet, 3 feet embedded into the ground in fast cement. And overall, the width is gonna be approximately 8 feet. And as I said, it's 4 feet.
Yeah, it's so basically, it's the size of a billboard at 4 by 8.
Right.
So that's a debatable discussion, right?
We don't let them permanently go.
Pardon me?
We don't let them permanently go because it's an open public forum and we want all viewpoints to have the opportunity to be heard in them.
Yep.
So it's not a public forum for viewpoints on those locations for signs. They're to advertise nonprofit events.
Not just nonprofit, we do our political there, we do our community events there, we do, you know.
But so
aside
far,
from-
politics has proven to be nonprofit. But that's a whole nother issue.
Just,
I guess my
Go ahead.
concern is just one Wendy's point of view, coming off of the latest Supreme Court discussions with, Boston, 9-0.
On the flag raising?
Yes.
Mhm.
So I guess my only question is, who decides
content.
which groups get to put their sign?
Oh, yes. The council decides, basically, and the service organizations, they themselves, they decide.
I go to jail because now I'm choosing,
Right.
you know,
Right, so then it could become an issue if there aren't guidelines of what qualifies to be considered to be put there. If it's left to the council's decision of who goes there, it is pretty much an all or nothing.
It's more of like, it's the service organizations that decides like what they want to send. Like, for example, there's a section in the website that lists the current service organizations. That's where I got all these signs and like these examples from. And basically, I'm just gonna react to them, ask if they have any awards or signs they'd like to display. And they're really the ones, you know, if you would like to add, you can always add something, like recommend something. But overall, these are the organizations that will be mainly sending them in.
So go ahead, Warren, then I'll ask my question. So can the council set very specific criteria?
The council could certainly set very specific criteria. We should likely do it with a resolution as to what that criteria is.
Right,
but
right.
Get in trouble.
It does raise some issues.
So
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
was under the impression that you were putting up the signs with the service organizations already there, and it would be as a whole already packaged,
coordinated.
not coming through this dais as to.
Go ahead, Warren. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing is, obviously, this is for Tenafly service organizations, but what if you have a state organization where Tenafly people are part of? What if you have a national organization Tenafly people are part of? You know, it's very difficult. I love this idea, by the way. I love the community. I love highlighting the service organizations. I think it's fantastic. You know, all of these small points that we're debating, we have to make sure that we legally can do this in this way. Because once we start saying no to things, we open ourselves up, you know, to possible disagreement in the world. So you understand why we're debating up here. My other thought is, I'm only 5 feet. I was just saying this. It's going to be very high. I'm not sure I could see a 7-foot sign. I mean, I'm just thinking like, do you want to drop it down a little?
That's definitely something we can arrange. It's basically The, as I've said, we didn't reach out to service organizations yet. So really the measurements of these really depend on like how many service organizations want to send us their signs, their logos, et cetera.
Just saying something that's at a 7-foot point, like I'm up, and most people aren't 7 feet. So,
Yeah, yeah.
The top level, you want someone to be able to easily read the details.
I just use like the nature center signs as reference and like a lot of signs from town.
Yes.
What if, let's put the location aside for a second. What if we figured out a way to put it on private property?
Like Stop and Shop?
Whether it's Stop and Shop or whether it's the Wells Fargo Bank or the Clinton Inn, a section of their property. Right? In other words, it's private property. And on private property, they can
Do any viewpoint.
do this all day and night long without having to worry about a slippery slope. Nature Center is public
But
property.
the slippery stuff is just, it's just not our slope.
No, it isn't. If it's,
That,
go ahead.
that Supreme Court case only holds for governmental speech.
No, again, allow stop, I mean, I'd be very supportive. Let Stop and Shop decide what they want to put on.
It's private property and no one can.
Council members, if I may, basically the purpose of this sign is to let people in like the communities, like mainly not exactly like familiar with Tenafly, let themselves know what service organizations Tenafly has to offer to them.
Right.
So,
Right, so
may I?
the debate we're having up here is, right, if we're, but go ahead, Vanu, please.
So
Go
just
ahead,
two
Vanu.
things. Yeah, okay, two things. One is, about putting it on private property. The one of probably more than one problems that I see is that if you put it on, for example, Stop and Shop property, it then becomes, they're then allowed to decide which of the service organizations they want to put on there. If they don't like, the Rotary Club for one day, they can say, take that down and, there won't be any, we wouldn't be able, first of all, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But, since they're a private organization, they can kind of make that decision, right? Wendy, do I have that kind of understanding right?
Both ways.
Right, yes.
You gotta speak into the mic
Yeah.
and to hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
there's concerns.
Okay, so the private property part is one thing, but the other thing is, I mean, in terms of location, do we have to stick with those four, current places where we put signs, or can we designate another
No.
area? So I mean, I personally, I would consider the Hyler Park, either side of Hyler Park as a possible. I mean, I like the idea. I just, there are some complications with where and how and all of that. But, the other end of Hyler Park by West Clinton.
Okay, so it sounds like you understand the debate that's going on.
Yeah, I
here,
understand.
right? We're very concerned that if we're on public property, so like you have the Elks, you have the Rotary, these fraternal organizations, right? There's other fraternal organizations out there whose emblems we wouldn't want to see kind of in town, obviously, right? Okay, so we have to come up with a solution that prevents that from happening, which is this private property. Because on private property, a person can put up what they want and not put up what they don't want,
Yeah.
right? Which solves that problem. So I think more conversations have to be, and it sounds like, and I'm not speaking for the council, but it sounds like all the council members like the idea. Okay, so congratulations on that. Good job. Thumbs up, okay? It's just about now this little legal issue we have to deal with about where it goes, okay? You're gonna have more conversations with Jimmy offline about that issue. And then some of us will also have conversations with Jimmy, providing him with some suggestions and maybe talking to some private property owners who would be interested in this sort of thing. And there's enough private property owners who are extremely community-minded that we'll be able to find a solution for this, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, but again, I'm
Alright.
saying I just wanted to raise again the point about the private property. You know, I think the idea behind what he's trying to establish is that all organizations, all these kinds of service organizations could have their emblems on there. A private property could then say, you know what, we don't want any of these. We only want Stop and Shop to have its name up there.
Well, right, so, I mean, that's a valid point. I think then we wouldn't encourage that private property owner to be part of this process, right?
Yeah, but you
if,
can't control it. Once somebody has it, you know, you're not going to be able to say, well, you know, we thought you were civic minded, but now it seems you're not. You know, I mean, I don't, I think putting it on private property just is a bad idea to begin with. But nobody, I wanted to know what people thought about the idea of putting it on one of the sides of Hyler Park. Is that something that doesn't seem or does seem appropriate?
It
Go
would
ahead.
run into the same problem. If that's the case, then we have to have a different discussion about what exactly the sign is and what's on the sign and how that gets determined. But any borough property regulating sign control is a whole other topic.
Mhm. Agreed, yes.
So let's let Michael have more conversations with Jimmy and let's see where it goes,
It's a beautiful drawing, by the way.
okay?
Mark,
Go
can I
ahead,
speak
Jeff,
on this?
please.
Sorry.
Who's that?
Christine?
No, not yet, Christine, not yet.
Okay.
Yes, not yet. Go ahead, Jeff.
This, I won't be able to find quickly. I had forwarded to Jimmy a picture from Engle Street near Bliss, I believe, but it's,
Engle Street near
near
Bliss, yes, I know, okay, I can
there are
picture it.
already 2 or 3 of these signs there. So they do exist, and the question is how they got there. There's a precedent.
Well, no, I mean, it still can be done. The question is, how would it be done to be on borough property as far as content versus
But that is,
location?
but that is.
Understood, but
Property.
but- it may not have been, how it got there is another question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole, yeah, from decades ago.
No, it's not. It's 4 years
Some
ago.
of those signs are,
While we're talking about signs, by the way, everyone does realize that our 9W Tenafly sign has been missing for a very long time. And can we get that reordered or replast?
where are you, Jeff?
This.
Oh, those, yes, yeah. The external side.
Programs for,
I think those,
sponsoring roadway type programs that they have those kind of.
That's not what these are, though. They're not, they don't say we sponsor them.
They have like the Elks Club meets, you know, every Wednesdays at 12. There's
they do, but if they're on the Clinton Inn property, they can put those.
That might be a very
Yeah.
nice spot to do
The
the
Clinton Inn property.
facing the
Yeah,
town.
correct.
And that
Yeah.
might be a perfect solution.
Okay, so you have
No.
clarity on this? More communications between you and Jimmy? Jimmy will communicate with the borough attorney and then we'll figure it all out.
So maybe next month I need to come back to get approval of this, or?
Yeah, you'll definitely make one more trip back to the council chambers here, okay? But
Approach just one other thing.
Go ahead.
Just to keep in your mind, disregard it after I say it. Went on vacation with my wife last weekend. We went, don't remember, someplace out of state. But they had exactly what you built. I have a picture of it. I can show you afterward. Instead of signs, they had a really cool thing on the history of the town I was in. Again, don't remember the town, but I have a picture. I'm just proactively thinking for you. That's an amazing thing. I told the Eagle Scout projects are the coolest thing in the entire world. If for some reason, I hope it's not the case, that this issue stops you from doing this, you could do the exact same thing, which I think is an equally cool project. And I'm hoping to goodness there's nothing, you know, the history of Tenafly, maybe it does get us in trouble, but that would just be a great side thing for yourself. And now you got yourself an Eagle project and you don't, Eagle Scout project, and you don't have to worry about
I see. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, Michael? You reach out to Jimmy, tomorrow to continue the discussion,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
All right,
for your
thank you
time.
very much. Good job. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, next item is, parking ordinance recommendation.
Can I hear from someone on the planning board about this, please?
So Jeff, you want to do that then?
Yeah, so I actually want to start by addressing the memo that accompanies this. That says, the planning board has carefully considered, blah, 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 has found it to be satisfactory, now desires to recommend to the Borough Council the adoption. So that actually is not quite true. It was to forward to the council so that the council could discuss it. And I think I've said at many of these meetings that there are very few issues that do not merit discussion. And that was one of the reasons I supported this, was so that the council could go through it. So the idea here is to provide a way for buildings, especially along West Railroad and along Washington Street, to be able to pay a one-time fee, and that one-time fee would be $5,000 per spot, that if they decide to develop their property and not provide spots, each spot that they're required to provide, that they don't add would be that $5,000 one-time payment, which the idea is to encourage them to cantilever second and third floor residences over a parking area to shorten the size of the commercial establishment and to have more residents over it. Personally, I will say that I think $5,000 is not much of an incentive to put in that spot if you take square footage and the going rate for commercial space, but that's a separate issue. In addition, there were a couple of proposed changes to some of the zoning requirements for buildings, adding some height, extending the back and overall coverage, partly based on what some of the existing buildings already had. Again, this is the kind of thing that would require more conversation at the council level. So we do need to address the parking. We know that in one way or another. We've talked about various options, including permits for overnight parking for some of the people who move into the downtown as residents. That permit fee would be over and above the 5,000. The 5,000 would be allegedly to start a fund to pay for, let's say, repaving some of those parking lots. But if it's a one-time fee, and we know the cost of paving, it's really not going to buy us a lot. So again, I voted yes so that this body could be more deliberative. I wasn't going to sit there and say, no, we shouldn't discuss it further. So with all that in mind, you saw the proposals in there, and I did want to highlight the changes to the building height, building setbacks, coverage, as well as the $5,000.
Comments from the council members?
Can you, with the specifics, sorry, can you just help me walk through these proposed changes? I'll go back to the parking, but just the proposed changes to the building coverage. Am I right that it says from 40% coverage to 80% coverage? Is that, what was the discussion on that? What was the?
So part of that discussion issue was those lots are pretty much 100% impervious, right? Because you've got, 2 feet of space on the side, 10 feet of space on the back, it's all blacktop. And so it gives an opportunity, basically for those lots to almost be cleaned up so they can build on more of the lot, if you will, on the back. That's not the front and not the sides. The sides are all 0 lot already. The buildings are all next to each other. But when you go back there, it's all kind of cockeyed, if you will. Buildings are different depths, right? Some of them have parking, some of them have no parking. So it's giving the people who own those buildings an opportunity to use that space. Adam?
To hear, since you said on the planning board, I'd really like to hear a discussion on
I
this.
sit on the
No,
planning
I
board
know,
too.
I said you used to, so I'm curious to know from people who've sat on the planning board here. I'd like to hear what Vinu has to say too.
I don't know what my point of view is based off my legacy on the planning board. I think for me, similar things that Jeff mentioned, I took notes when I read through it. So there are 2 or 3 things that I have. The first one is the $5,000. I totally thought it was per year. Why would you, $5,000 for a lifetime? I'm thinking about, I'll buy it. That's like a great investment. So there's no way that's market rate. So you can't possibly use that as a number, I wouldn't think.
Well, then, yeah, you're talking about charging $500 a parking spot per month approximately for a resident.
Again,
That's,
I'm not the guy that sets the rate. I believe it should be market rate. Find out what market rate is. It's certainly not $5,000 over 10 years. It's $500 a year, which is.
Well, no, so there's two different payments. One would be basically like the equivalent of losing
a
your
license fee.
your bond for a tree that you don't replace.
Right.
If you're not putting in a parking spot, it's this much money for whatever spots you're not putting in. Then additionally, if you're not providing the spots and somebody has to go into a permit program, the people renting the spaces would then have to run through the permit program. That's a separate fee.
And we get that money. But we have it in your, so what you're saying is this is a
parking
state license, for lack of a better word.
Right.
For a giant stadium.
Correct, you buy a ticket for every month parking.
But then the borough is going to set what the monthly fee is,
Absolutely.
and we get that.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that makes dramatically different than I thought, so clarify that, it would be helpful, but I still think $5,000 doesn't seem for a developer that turns something, again, I want this, so I'm not trying to make it worse, I just want it to be market rate. So I'm done there, let me just
Charge
say,
more money.
for market rate, that's.
Well, to that point, it's not so much market, well, it is market rate. So I did some quick calculations. If you have a roughly 9 by 18 parking spot, which is the standard spot size, and I looked up a lot of commercial in this region is going for about $25 a square foot. So if you take those square feet times 25, if you forgo the parking spot, you're getting an extra $4,000, give or take, in rent. So it's a no-brainer. If I'm paying $5,000 one time, I'll take the $1,000 loss year one. And then going forward,
So let's think of it as a science.
so that is the market argument, is that this is a windfall for anybody. who wants
So
to-
that's just one that, let's just.
Yeah, the discussion over the price is different than the discussion of the concept. Yeah.
So then, just the only other.
I want to hear why you want the concept.
Why am I wanting to do the concept? Because that opens the door for more commerce and everything downtown. So we know that we have the space, parking lot. We know that, sorry, there is a belief, whether you agree or disagree, that if you have people in downtown, you bring more vibrant community. One can believe that we want to do that, you would want to do that in Tenafly, but the challenge is the current situation is the apartments downtown don't have the associated parking spot, so you can't do it. So what this does is this opens up that hypothesis that downtown living is a good idea.
Then the landlords will improve their buildings.
So just.
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
Here's the other one I want to be sensitive to, because you know me, I always got, 3 steps ahead. So parking lot O is what we've always been discussing. I'm cool with that. The parking lot across this, catty corner to the bank where the trees, Christmas trees.
By Franklin.
Parking lot N, which actually I'm proud that I didn't know this called parking lot N, so now I just learned something. Thank you.
Post office parking.
The post office parking lot.
No, the one across the street from the post
Right,
office.
so what I just want to make sure of is hypothetically, if something were to possibly come about in that space, hypothetically in the future, does this require, like, what happens if someone buys that parking spot, like, right in the middle of the parking lot end? Can you, for lack of a better word, kick them out? Can we pull it back and move them to that, you know, to another parking? I want the optionality of the parking lot end more than just.
The parking lot end is owned by the borough.
I know that.
So, yes, it's your permit program, you designate which parking lots the
Okay, so it
permits are
doesn't
available.
close any options for parking lot end in the future.
It does not close options, but keeping in mind that you would want to be able to provide an alternative, otherwise you'll have allowed for residential living with no parking. So you will want to provide an alternate arrangement, just out of common neighbor type situation, but it does not close.
Yeah, but I could use the parking lot or whatever. So I would just say, as long as we go in with, that it's a very large parking lot that could be used for, so that was just my concern there. So as long as we have the optionality to quote unquote pull it back.
Lauren?
So one of the main goals of requiring, at least from the history I've tried to read here, of requiring parking attached to living downtown is to actually create a better planning tool so that developers can't just come in, remove our business district and put up all apartments. It's one of the stopgap tools that protects our community. I'm not against living downtown, but to give, first of all, the fee is a joke, $150 million a spot.
Separate topic.
Before you go.
Separate topic, concept.
To make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We said how many spots we want to give.
No, this
It's not
gives,
unlimited.
no, this gives any developer,
It's not unlimited at all. It's not unlimited. It's right, it's parking lot. Oh, if it can't fit over there, it doesn't, you can't use it,
as far as
right?
I read this ordinance, and correct me, because maybe I'm misreading it,
Right.
is that if a developer comes in and they don't have the ability for parking, they may pay for these phantom spots, $5,000 spots, like giving away the town, and they can put up their building. They don't have to find a location to trade a parking spot. Am I reading that correctly?
So, okay, so if you buy one of the buildings on Washington Street tomorrow.
Out of Brasserie, I want to put up a 5-story, 4-story
Well,
building.
Well, first of all, there's only 3 stories.
you can only put three, it doesn't.
You can only put 3 stories.
You can only put the
I'm
three
kidding,
stories.
but I want to put an apartment building. I now buy that piece of.
Okay, so let's say Brasserie has 2 floors, you want to put a 3rd floor on and put 2 apartments upstairs. I don't remember if Brasserie has parking in the back.
Everything down. put
Right,
up
and so
a
you
building.
need 2 parking,
To have commercial.
and you need 2 parking spots.
And you can only
You have
use
to have commercial on the
60%
There-
of the state, you can only use this for 60% of the requirement. So you just.
I still think,
Well, we could just add one sentence that says, we limit it to, we get to limit the number of spots.
Well, this is also first come, first served. You run out of spots, you run out of spots.
concept, and that's why I was asking, I wasn't in the planning board discussion. I wish I actually, almost the minutes had been provided here. That's how much I'm not understanding the rationale behind the concept. Is the concept to allow builders to come in and forgo the parking obligation? Is that why we're creating this? Or is, well, okay, so, or is the concept that we just physically don't have enough spots, and so we're gonna, split the baby and require phantom spots sometimes?
Okay, so good point.
Okay.
So here's did you finish? I don't mean.
Yes, go ahead. I'm trying to understand.
Part of the problem with our businesses downtown, and we used to have an ordinance that said, if you wanted to, if Brasserie decided they didn't want to be a restaurant anymore, and it was going to be turned into a bike store, you had to go, they have no off-street parking. You had to go in front of the planning board to get a variance from the parking requirements which don't exist. Not the requirement, the parking that doesn't exist.
Physical parking spots.
Which makes the absurd notion that if you don't want to go for the variance, you can actually never put a business in that building ever again,
So
right? So that was eliminated, right? Because you had no off-street parking, okay? And so this is kind of the same thing with the buildings themselves. It's not designed so that someone comes in, tears down the building and puts up 50 stories because now they don't have the parking requirement. You still can't put up more than 3 stories. You still have to have retail. This is just saying there is no off-street parking. Therefore, if we want to see some of these small building owners actually improve their buildings and get a few extra people living downtown, they need relief from the requirement to have off-street parking on their building lot, which doesn't exist.
So
There you go.
2 buildings are coming in on Railroad. 2
Correct.
buildings, each 4 floors,
Correct.
not 5, right? 4.
There's no
Never
5
decided.
stories.
Okay.
Right.
Then,
I don't even think the first one is 4. I think it's 3, right? 3. It's 3, yeah. It's 3.
okay, with the, with store downstairs, 3.
It's a retail store downstairs, yeah.
Movie theater is 4.
They're adding a floor to it, or I think it's 3.
Oh,
It's 3,
It's 3.
but
yeah.
44 feet.
Correct, but it's 3 stories. Go ahead.
4?
Is it 4? But go ahead.
So that's now, whatever, 7 or 8 new apartments
Right,
that need parking.
right.
And we give them this by 5, we're never agreeing to 5,000, whatever the fee is, wipe that. Okay. Who's to say that the entirety of the business district won't follow in that pattern?
You don't have enough parking spots for it to happen.
I think,
They didn't need to trade parking spots here.
no, I think we can.
Under the, wait, I'm just confused on the point. Under this ordinance, the way it is written, and maybe, again, I'm misconstruing the language. Under this ordinance, they don't have to find a parking spot and pretend like they're not taking it. Under this ordinance, there's no parking spot, and they just pay $5,000, and that imaginary, would have been a parking spot,
So you-
doesn't need to exist physically.
You've raised a 100% valid point about what's the limitation of the number of parking spots, so that we have to make.
That it has to actually be traded, or it has to actually exist in one of our lots.
So there's 2 things about the availability of parking spots. One is, you have a deal with, whatever, who owns, so you own a parking spot, okay? You own a building and you could fit 10 cars in your private lot, and you're somewhere on Western Washington Street. And Adam owns a building on Railroad. He wants to rent 5 of your spots for the next 20 years. Right, he can now go to the planning board and say, he's providing the off-street parking. But there's a limit to how many people like you have parking available. The second thing Adam can do is buy a license for a number bigger than $5,000, okay? For which the tenants or the building owner will pay a monthly fee to park also in that spot. And it's public parking. And the public parking is limited, but that's the public version of him going to you, because there's a limited number of you, and we're using a public parking spot for the same purpose, for the same overnight parking.
So now we get 7 new buildings, hypothetically.
Right.
Now we're at the point where our lots, N is taken, O is taken, E is taken,
No more licenses
But
available.
again, let's make it easy.
and now we got a building
But
coming
let's
in.
free 'em. I'm
No,
with
you
you on
can't.
everything. I've already moved to the answer, which is, let's set a number, it's 20 spots.
Total.
Or whatever the number is.
And then-
Right,
And then, let's see how it goes.
right.
And if we find out that they need 100 spots, we realize it's not what we want, but we get to cap, we get to set how many spots we have. This is something that's a wonderful thing because, again, the spot across, catty corner to the bank is never, ever, 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 ever used unless it's the Little League,
Yeah, but now that's
parade
gonna,
day. It's the only time I've ever seen that used.
that's gonna be a building now, though, but I'm just.
That's because you don't park there during concerts. During concerts, every Tuesday night, that lot is.
It's the catty corner one. I'm not saying the one that's being sold. We still have.
Boy Scout tree area, that's why I call
Boy Scout
it.
tree, parking lot. I think this is a win-win. It's an underutilized space.
I
We just
think,
have to set the number.
Right.
And the price.
it sounds,
Concern is, it's a very much slippery slope that allowing the trading of an actual spot required by the building versus taking a municipal spot or finding, you know, for me, one of the best things one of our new apartment building owners did was actually do that private negotiation and get her building spots. That was excellent business. And if our proposed development can't do deals like that, then that's a problem to me, that they're not trying, they're not.
But there's also,
This is a wonderful thing, because again, underutilized, and I'm sure Jimmy would love in her budget, and Susan would love in her budget, an extra $1 million because we're getting paid every.
Right.
Because we're getting money. This is a revenue generating thing. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing. As long as we limit the number of spots.
yeah,
I think this has to go back to the planning board to flesh stuff out.
and that's perfectly reasonable.
Even
Yeah.
prepared yet I'm very much need more information on this. So
So what's the,
okay,
what's the
so I would
limit?
like to know, what is the limitation here? Is there a difference between a commercial business coming in needing a spot and an apartment or developer needing a spot? I'd like actually that to be differentiated. I think that's a very important difference, because I'm much more willing to give a commercial business who wants to open a differing price or more availability than to have another building knocked down for apartments. And I do want to make that distinction. The fee is a joke. I mean, this should be, you know, you're talking about a market rate for, this is the opportunity to build in Tenafly, opportunity to be here. I think this has to be significantly higher.
I don't understand your commercial, what do you mean? I'm trying to understand that, because I'm taking notes about this.
Okay, I am more willing to be lenient or not ignore, but overlook the need for 10 parking spots versus 5 if a business wants to open here. The whole point of the downtown business district is to encourage business. And if this is a tool to encourage business, I'm all for it. Love it. Absolutely love it. At the same time, by allowing this concept, we open the door for full development of apartments without restriction here. I am very fearful of that. I think it's too broad in that sense, and I would want to see it more limited or more controlled even. Forget even that. I want to see a plan of what the planning board wants for the next 10 years in this town. And if it's, well, the master plan though isn't a planning, it's not telling me what this business district looks like.
Okay, so I got the note, so understood. Yes, Jeff.
So,
Yeah, crazy.
no, it's a good point. Look, before I was on the planning board, going back, the idea was, and I think Councilmember Michaels stated pretty accurately about, you want to bring people into downtown. So the idea was this 1 floor of commercial, 2 floors of residential above it. The plan was fine. That's a sound plan. It's really, if you think about the depth of these buildings, it is a limited number. What really wasn't flushed out or thought about at that time, and the big mistake that we can say they made in 2020 hindsight, is the parking. Because once they eliminate parking for the commercial, nobody thought about, oh, if we're adding these apartments, where are they going to park? And the one problem I have with this, to your point, is where we talk about applicants participating in the PILOP programs as prescribed herein shall be entitled to 1 overnight parking permit in municipal lot U and/or O. So that makes it so that we can't, the way this is written, we cannot say we're limiting it to 20.
No, we can, because the only way you could participate in the pilot program, and I didn't write the ordinance, I had.
No, I know.
No authorship, I don't.
That's why we're having this conversation.
It's, but I did read it, and you need approval from either the planning or zoning board, whichever one your application's before, in order to participate in this payment in lieu of parking program. And with it saying the 1-to-1, the intent is there that once those 1-to-1s are full, the next person doesn't have that available, but it could be written to clarify that.
I would think it would have to be, because I know the planning board, the Board of Adjustment operate separately. They're not going to sit there and keep that good account. You have different secretaries even for each, so it's not like you have a uniform way of tracking it.
That needs to get flushed out.
And the concept of full is a real problem. At some point, you know, let's say we're 50% giving away our lots. At some point, we still need commercial business and space. God forbid, you know, we let people eat in our restaurants and use our stores. So at some point, you're gonna be facing an argument about the 51st spot and saying no. And the concept of full really has to be defined in the ordinance. Yeah, but
Is that the downtown revitalization work identified the plethora of spots? I saw Burgess as part of this material that we received, did a second parking study. The great news is we do have the space. We also, unfortunately, but I would love this to change, residents, you know, parking spots not in front of the store, there's no parking. So parking lot O and the Christmas slots is never used anyway. Again, it sounds like a win-win as long as we have the right rate and the right limit. Full stop.
can I ask, are you willing to do this for commercial but not residential?
That defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do.
No, I want to bring in
So,
business.
but commercial, we eliminated the parking requirement. There is no
They had to
parking,
have one behind.
nothing, zero. There's no parking requirement for an existing commercial business that does not have any off-street parking. That's done.
Designated areas ready for employee parking.
So,
And that was an issue with, that issue actually came up with the real estate company Keller Williams. They have no off-street parking.
so can I?
Then they have plenty of employees there shopping downtown.
Can I ask a couple of questions also about the additional proposals? So obviously, I have a huge interest in renovating this parking lot O. And part of it, I know apparently no one else but me has seen, you've seen these plans. Part of it is actually a reimagining of all the parking and giving all of these businesses, at least on this corner surrounding parking lot O, 2 spots. That was part of the plan, was creating parking, because what happens is all of the dumpsters and all of the business items that are in that parking lot become eliminated, become consolidated in the center to a center dumpster, and parking actually gets created. And so I would like the planning board to review that concept, which Colliers has, and because it creates parking. Before you go and extend the coverage behind, before you push everything back, I'm curious to know if that would be
But we have the
taking the
parking there
area.
now for people to use.
But it's taken by some little dumpsters and houses and things,
So I
and
actually wrote
fencing
down
and,
on my notes.
yeah.
You looked at my notes that I actually wrote the money that we get as that seat fee.
Yeah.
I wrote on my notes, can we earmark on that money to go directly to revitalizing the parking lot O, making it prettier, making it more user-friendly, other things we could do with it? But that gets to the same thing. Yes, I would love, you know, more lights and.
Yeah, it's all there, but if we take it, if we actually take the physical space with pushing all the buildings behind the setback and going from a 40% coverage to an 80% coverage there, I think you actually lose the ability to do that plan.
Let's see, I think.
Okay.
Mostly because.
So I'm kind of a no.
Work tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
I think what we should say is, you know.
we've got the next steps to do to go back with the planning board to clarify things.
Can I also task to look at the Colliers plan with the planning board and see if,
We can look at the Colliers plan.
is that something I can, am I allowed to
Just
ask?
ask. What do you mean? No, you asked
Because it's
3
an
questions,
engineering
you're
thing
not allowed to
before
ask
the
a
council.
4th.
I know, but it's an engineering thing for the council, so, and it's.
Yeah, I'll ask Andy to give us the report and bring it to. Okay, Colliers report. All right. I'm gonna jump around because we've got some residents here. Is that okay with everyone?
Nice parking.
Okay.
That comes back.
We've got, Jason and Lisa Corral here at 26 Birchwood. Lisa and Jason, are you here?
Just lost my agenda.
Hi, how you doing? Good. With Jason? What's going on? What?
My wife would.
Okay, your wife couldn't be here. Okay. So you've got the two concrete sidewalk pieces on a block that has,
There's a few more. There's about,
on your property or someone else's property?
in front of my property, there's approximately 6.
Okay. Okay, so before he starts, okay, does the council have any issues with this or questions?
Sorry, just remind me, we're ripping up the side.
So no one on the street, and Jimmy, you correct me
The
if I'm
bridge to nowhere.
It's a bridge to no one on the street has a sidewalk and they've got 4 or 5 concrete slabs that are broken up by tree roots.
None of your neighbors have a continuation.
Who are elected 22 Birchwood, they have this lots, and they're happy to get rid of it.
Well, what do you mean by block?
It's like square blocks, man. It's not- yeah.
You have a photo of it?
No, I don't have a photo.
I have a photo. Yeah,
Did you?
I just got Google Maps.
So these aren't regular sidewalks?
Wait, are you in a historic district? Were you in Bluestone?
It's not.
Okay, because, okay.
So the council had received something, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt, had received pictures many moons ago.
Yeah, I remember these.
And there was issues because the tree roots are lifting the concrete that's there, as
Yep.
well as the fact that only one house next door on the block, on that whole side of the street, has any sidewalk at all. As you know, there's been a recent, in the last year, change to the ordinance to allow for an appeal of this nature. That didn't previously exist, and that is this is your first appeal hearing. So congratulations, you're the first one.
I have no issues with this.
So what,
ADA compliant for anyway.
not even close.
I would trip over that 12 times.
Yeah, actually, DPW took down. That's the development that's happened since then. Well, this thing can't grind stone as long as those blocks are in place. So we're gonna have to lift up the blocks anyways. Question.
I,
Hit my car.
I can't hear the,
Go ahead, Benu.
no, I can't hear what he's saying. Can you get closer to the mic?
Oh, speaking to the
Oh,
mic.
sorry, close to the microphone? Yes.
Come all the way up to it.
Okay. Yeah, it's also, I mean, it is a safety issue. There are kids that will take their bikes and I think it's kind of a fun, kind of like
Probably.
BMX course, and it's not good.
Until the lawsuit happens.
Yeah.
So does the council have a consensus about this to remove these? And then the theory would be we would put it on the next meeting for approval.
My only ask, for it, my only ask would be if you could just speak to your neighbor, if you guys could both come. I would assume they'd also wanna.
They would also need to file an appeal to remove it. There's
Right.
no other process for the borough to remove sidewalks, because as you know, there's been
No,
more of a
So-
process of adding sidewalks.
This is his appeal right here and now.
Because of the tree, they were told that they have to remove the concrete that is there, and then they would have to replace it absent this appeal process.
I'm happy to talk about it, running through the procedure.
I would hope, like, there's some level of efficiency somewhere in our government. That I don't have to have this conversation.
Prior to us passing this ordinance, this would have been impossible 4 months ago.
So I would just see if they could come forward, write their letter, and we'd love to knock it out at the same time.
So are you, do we have a consensus for approval at the next meeting on this? No?
Yes. So you should always get reassurance.
Okay, so that Jason does not need to come back again.
Oh,
No,
let the
Jason's
man go.
number is that it does not get.
No, Jason does
All
not have to leave.
Jason does not need to come back. What would happen is if the council's in approval, Jimmy and Omar and I would work together on having a resolution authorizing the removal, so that then the paperwork would be in place. And just, I should have noted, and I'm sorry, Mayor, they did submit the proofs that the 100-foot owners were notified of the hearing.
I saw those.
Yeah, those were.
Okay, just hold on one second. Vanu, are you good with this?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. The way, as discussed.
All right.
Thank you.
So you don't need to come to the next meeting. It'll be on the agenda for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Humsey and Mr. Stovall.
Okay. Please don't do any work until it gets approved officially at the next meeting.
Understood. We've
Makes
waited
just-
for a while, we can wait for a little more.
Makes things easier.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
patience,
Thank you for your
cooperation.
time.
Thank you.
Are you here for public comment or what brings you here? No, Scott, come up here, please. I'm trying to, we have a gentleman over here who's gonna be next. Yes. We're doing public comment. Go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
I can't hear anything.
Come closer to the microphone. Go ahead.
So last year, we know we had a Hurricane Ida, and our basement has flooded, like the water is like 4 feet high in the basement. And this is not the only case. I know on that street, almost most of the houses got a flood in their basement. And recently in July, there's a rain that is not that big, but still the street are flooded and the Walnut Park is flooded. And the water would flow from the Walnut Park to our backyard. And the houses around that park is like especially affected because the water is like going down straight from the park and go directly to their backyard. So I have the pictures if you would like to have a see.
You can.
What are you looking to do?
I'm looking to find a way to solve this issue. I believe there's a problem on the drainage system. And
Yeah.
the water shouldn't be flow from the park directly to our backyard. There should be some like drainage between the park and the houses. So the water can drain down somewhere else, not our backyard. And I feel like since I moved in last year, every time it's raining, our backyard is flooded. It shouldn't be like that.
So we have,
It's not normal water coming from the rain. It's the water coming down from the park that accumulates to our park. It's not just my house. I have neighbors. I believe they are on this block, and they all affected.
yeah, it's a bad problem. There's no question about it. You know, one of the things, I don't know if you were here earlier when we were talking about with our engineer, and that's the area we're actually going to start mapping to understand what has to be done over there, you know, what we have there, and then what the potential solutions might be. It is not a quick or easy fix because part of the problem is we can't control the water that's coming down, and we don't have enough places to send it to right now. And that's what our engineers have to figure out what to do. And the first step in that process is to understand and map what we have there now. And then we go to the next step of solving the problem. And we're not clear yet what that answer is going to be. We did it once on Dean Drive. Councilman Grossman was talking about that earlier, and it worked. So we're going to be looking at the same sort of solution to see if that can be used over here. And so we'll see. So we understand the problem. We've got it in a lot of spots in town. Right. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that is a big problem. But I think at least can we have a what can we do? And it's not big, some small steps we can do. Like every week to just water getting to our backyard. We cannot do anything. It's a big backyard, but it's like 2/3 of the backyard after water. There's no use of that backyard.
No, understood. So that area is one of the first, you know, the engineer was here tonight. We talked about it. That's going to be that in the Franklin Street area, the first areas we're looking at. You know, we have had the DPW go out and, you know, kind of snake and clean the lines. We're going to have them check again to make sure. So yeah, we'll send them out again. It's a relatively, you know, when I say long-term, even if they clean it out tomorrow fully and, you know, and come back in the following week, the problem is not the drains being clogged so much as it is, the system isn't big enough to withstand heavy rains in a very short period of time. That's the problem we have. That's what we're looking at. Right, that's what I'm saying, is we don't have anywhere for the water to go to yet. We've got to figure out where to send it. right? That's the and as the engineer was talking about, he believes, back of the envelope, we have to send it off to the Tennakill Brook. And it's a question of how do we get it there? Yes, absolutely, yeah. Well, he's already been there. Our administrator and I have been there with the engineer, with the DPW director. We've started those conversations. And now we're going to start, the council agreed tonight, well, because it's now state law. We have to map and identify everything we have down there and then determine where we go from there. Sure, Omar, could you just keep track of her address and name? We can certainly keep her posted, of course. Okay? Just give your address, your phone number. Lauren, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was gonna say, I know that, I've done a lot of sports over, and, take my kids there and have called in to
Yeah.
The water sitting
Right.
field, but, it is below, I think, just like Sunnyside, it's below sea.
Right.
where the grade is, and
You raise the field, it floods the houses.
it's very similar to a Sunnyside.
It's just like with Sunnyside's conundrum. Is a gentleman who wants, whoever, okay. Tom, come on up, please.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you? Just, let's go through the name and street.
Tom Giordano, 12 George Street. The water problem by her house is the same brook stream that drains forward that ends up going through half the town. Let me explain what this brook stream starts in Walden Park. It's underground. It's under Lindley, Roberts Court, DeMott Street. At DeMott Street, not sure how it goes. It goes to the parking lot of the Marble Apartments. Goes under Westervelt. It's still on the west side of the railroad tracks. As it approaches Tenafly Pediatrics, there's another drainage ditch brook on the right side by 111 Dean that goes under the railroad tracks and it joins together. From there, it goes under Franklin Street, hooks around behind George Street. When it meets the other brook by the railroad tracks, then it's, all this other time it's below ground. Now it's above ground. It's past the pediatrics, it's under George Street, Franklin, hooks around. When it gets by number 22 George, it was underground, 4 homes. When it comes to my backyard on George, it's above ground.
Oh, Tom, can I just interrupt? Speak into the microphone because I know
No problem.
no one can hear and
Sure.
thank you.
Welcome. And it comes above ground behind my house, all the way until the drive-in bank at Wells Fargo. It goes under West Clinton Avenue, goes between the bank and the apartment building next to it. Then it's exposed for about 30 feet, and it goes underneath the stores, underneath the movie theater, all the stores on West Railroad. Where the Zaries used to be, the sidewalk widens up. That's the brook underneath there. It goes under Washington Street, in front of the diner. At the Alma Bank, it makes a left and goes under Stop and Shop, under Grove Street, under the apartment building on Grove, and finally hooks up at the Tennakill Brook by the soccer cage with that. And all the water from the area down there all drains into there. Now, the brook's pretty wide, but when it goes underneath the stores, it's only like 2 by 3 feet wide. And I was there the other day, and the one wall is caving in, almost blocking the brook with that.
Where is that?
Just before it goes under the movie theater. The whole wall's tilted over.
The piece that you can see from outside from the parking lot.
Yes, you have to go
Where
to
you
the
look
parking
down,
lot.
right.
And the movie theater's on your left.
Right.
It's caving in. Question would be, who's responsible for cleaning out the debris that go underground? It goes underground for hundreds and hundreds of feet. Who?
Send the video, Ken?
So,
I mean, from Waldo Park, all the way up to Tenafly Pediatrics, this brook is underground.
right. So as a general rule, is the land that the brook is, that the water is in, is owned by the property owner, and the water is owned by the state. Okay, right? That's not the answer you want to hear, but that's how it works. So where the brook is underneath a public street, through a public through a public park, those culverts, it's the borough's responsibility to clean those out on the borough property.
On private property, it's the
It's the
property owner.
private property owner's responsibility to clean them out and keep them flowing. That's correct.
Okay. Another thing that's adding to the flooding that nobody has really control over, in that area down there, there's a lot of older homes being torn down. 80, 90, 100-year-old homes, and they're being replaced with homes that meet the zoning, but are covering as much as allowed as possible. So there's less ground for the water to drain in, which that's by the books, they're doing it the proper way.
You know, one of the things, just to throw it out there, because I put an addition on my house recently, right? So my house is 100 years old, right, on Hamilton? And it had no drainage systems. There's the gutters onto the lawns. And now it's like everyone who builds a new house or a new addition over, I think it's 400 square feet, we have to put tanks into tanks in the ground in big gravel pits so that the water from the roof is directed into there, so the ground has a better opportunity to. So that's what's going on with them. And the engineer talked about that a little bit earlier.
Another thing that would help is the Tenafly Brook needs to be dredged. It was last dredged, it was dredged decades ago, and then it was done by the Berkeley County Mosquito Control.
Correct.
Because, I mean, you can walk across parts of that at times. I know a few years ago, Demer's had their pond dredged. So I know there's firms out there that do that, and I think that would help.
Demer's had their pond dredged?
Yes, about 3 summers ago. Another thing as far as flooding, there's a proposal to build on the Wells Fargo property. And that right now acts as a floodplain. Was an award that came from under West Clinton Avenue, is sometimes 2 or 3 feet of water was there. The water was so high during Ida, one of our fire trucks got stuck because the water was over the island in the parking lot, no pun intended, the island with that. And that's how deep the water was. One other thing that was proposed or talked about decades ago, when these 2 brooks meet by the railroad tracks, it costs millions, have the brook underground, go all the way underground along the railroad tracks to Chestnut Street, and then make a left and go right to the Tenafly. That was talked about decades ago. But I think a lot of the problem is, the bottleneck is under these culverts, private property, they're all full of debris and branches, everything's under.
And you would think they would clean them so they don't flood their basements.
But people, I guess, don't know they can have to do it, want to do it, the expense, going underground. With that.
But Jimmy and Mayor, we did a covert project where we sent cameras into all of that system to check on the status. So how did we get?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
pathways that Tom is
question.
talking about?
There is a report on what that was.
We did this work over the
Okay,
past year
I mean,
to video internally into the culverts to see the status, to see where,
do you
what
know
was
where
happening.
it started and how far it went?
It wound up on River Edge Road, so it went underneath all the buildings on West Railroad. That's correct. I do know that. I don't know how far south it went, and then it ended somewhere on River Edge.
I'm just saying, when the brook, the drainage river starts in Walnut Park, it doesn't come above ground until it gets all the way to Tenafly Pediatrics.
Right.
And it's all underground. Another thing, I know they put holding tanks on Dean Drive years ago, but when Ida came, I mean, it was a storm of, who knows, a century, they say. Dean Drive overflowed, the water come over the railroad tracks.
Right.
Into the parking lot of the Marlboro Co-op.
Right. Maybe we should have you map the system.
No problem helping. And as this brook comes farther into town, you get more and more runoff, the water coming down East Clinton Avenue, Hillside Avenue, all ends up in this drainage that goes under the stores.
Right.
I'm willing to help any way I can.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom Giordano, 12 George. I'm here representing on the board of the Marlboro Apartment Co-op.
Okay, thank you.
Again, this last storm we had last month, we had 2 more units were flooded out again. I know it was a lot.
Ground floor units?
Yeah, we have 2 of them. I know there was a lot of water in a short period of time, but this hasn't happened. My parents lived in a complex for 40 years, and other than a little water here and there, this has never happened. I know there's more rain, global warming comes into play here and stuff, but I think somehow these pipes somehow have to be cleaned out, or cameras have to go. I know it's a long stretch of pipe, but should be checked out with that.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you, Tom. Come on up, sir. Thank you for your patience, number one. Just your name and your address, please, sir.
Scott Kraus, I'm a resident of Old Penn, but I'm a property owner in Tenafly. So my property on Franklin Street, 71 Franklin Street, happens to be the area where the water tends to come up through the basement when flooding occurs.
71 Franklin is which building? I'm trying.
So that would be 2 houses in from the corner of Westervelt on the right-hand
Okay.
side. Across from their park.
Okay,
So this is actually a picture of the last storm, that it wasn't a storm, it was a rain event that occurred in an hour's time or 2 hours' time. And that was after 2 hours of the water sitting on the street. So it didn't just simply dissipate within minutes. It stood there. I called the DPW, I called the fire department, I called everybody I could, because what occurs when that water sits there is now it becomes, it's not just gonna sit out in the open, it comes up in my basement. So at that storm there, I had about 2 feet of water. During Ida, it filled up to the top of the rafters. So I lost all the equipment, everything in the basement was destroyed. In fact, the biggest concern I have at this point, and I know that they're gonna map it and all, and that's all good and well, but there are some properties just behind my property that take on a lot of water as well. And one of the trees that were in that property took on so much water and couldn't contain it and simply fell over and went right through my building. So luckily, my tenant there was safe because he was in his bed, but the whole house shook and it came through the kitchen. This is actually this is the storm or the water event that occurred 2 weeks ago. And you'll see that the water sits there longer than 2 hours. Now, this water probably sat in this location probably for most of the following day. So these trees now are 100-year-old trees. And this is the tree that remains, the stump that remains on the tree that came across my property. My concern is that these kind of rain events that occur, yes, we're going to try to resolve the water issue, but we also have a problem from above. These trees can't handle the water for being in their root system for all that much time. There was no wind involved in this rain event, so therefore we didn't have trees come down, but in Ida, one did come down. So it's my understanding that there is a high water table in the area there, the Franklin Street area. And so the roots that are on those trees probably don't even have to go that deep to sustain the leaf above them because the water table is so high. So those trees really are in danger and probably should be addressed sooner than later. I know there are private homeowners that own those trees, and I asked the DPW to please condemn the trees so that they don't fall and hurt somebody or kill somebody, but he doesn't have the authority to do that. My concern is that when it rains again, there's got to be a quick solution, a quick response. I mean, the DPW comes out and they look down the road and they get back in the truck and they I took it upon myself to wade through the water, clean the debris off of the storm drain. It helped a little bit, not a lot, but something was better than nothing. I would ask maybe for some pumps to pump it up the street a little bit. So this way it dissipates quicker. By sitting there, it's just filling up my basement. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this problem.
You're not.
I'm sure along Franklin Street, they all have a problem. I have 2 pumps that run continuously, 24/7. So even today, as we speak, it hasn't rained for weeks, my pumps are running. So they're taking that groundwater and they're throwing it out. So we're moving the water a little bit. Maybe perhaps the town can invest in some sort of pumps because if you go to Franklin Street, on either side of the street, you'll see water still sits in the storm drain. So the storm drains basically are filled up to capacity. So now whatever rain comes, it's just gonna simply run over the top, up and over, and it's fill out around and about us. So I inquired about something I saw from my neighbor's property and the neighbor behind me. And apparently there was an easement that was granted in the 1950s to a little tiny bungalow house that existed there. And now that builder took that easement and used it to the benefit to allow his runoff. So he has a big tank in the ground, but it's filled up to capacity. So he has a big green 6 or 9 inch pipe that comes right into the storm drain on Franklin Street. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he also allowed the neighbor's house to tie into that same pit. So now we have 2 houses on George Street that dump into Franklin Street. So that sort of helps to sort of add water to the street. So that's something that they require me to go and find out where that easement exists. And it's in the 1950s, it's somewhere in the Bergen County Courthouse, deeds and records somewhere. But how it was upgraded and updated for this new builder to allow an overflow to come into the storm drain in Franklin Street, where we can't even handle what we've had. I've had that house now for over 20 years and never saw kind of water like this.
What was the address of that house where that line is?
I'm not sure. I know 73 is the one that told me he has the easement. And he has the
73.
easement allowing the pipe to come from George Street through his property.
It's 73 Franklin.
Yes, and his storm drains also come down from the house and enter into that exact overflow as well. So not only do you have his house tied in, you have that brand new house on George Street, and I want to say it's the neighbor next door, because normally an overflow should only have 1 pipe. There's 3 pipes that come into that
Okay,
pit.
we're gonna check that out.
So, I mean, a camera could probably identify. And then the other thing I was thinking too is it possible to have that big vacuum truck suck out debris on Franklin Street? I know they've been working on West Development for almost a week and a half there. I saw them doing a lot of.
Yeah, we do that, the truck's out there.
But they didn't address the Franklin Street sewers.
We'll look at it.
So maybe that's a possibility to sort of help give some relief to that area. I know that the superintendent over there in the Marlboro, he lost his whole living facility because he's on the ground level and he got flooded out. So, I mean, most of the people in that complex, they have garages, which they probably have cars and.
Right, they get
garages, and they lost a ton of them. They also have storage in there. In fact, I have storage in one of those units as well. And last week or 3 weeks ago, I had cabinets floating all over the garages.
All right, so yep, we understand. We've got a lot of work to do with this whole flooding issue, so I appreciate your comments.
Every time I hear a little bit of rain.
Yep.
And I'm up in Old Pan, but I get in my car at 3 o'clock in the morning and I race down because if there's anything I can do, bail it out
Yep.
or keep the pups from running or whatever. I mean, I've got to get some relief somehow, and I'm sure the people in the Marlboro really.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Okay. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. You have a question, Jeff?
Not a question. You had mentioned, I can't solve the flooding problem. I wish I could. I have the same issue. I've gotten flooded out 3 weeks ago and last September pretty badly. So my heart's out to you. But the thing is, on the tree, that actually, I learned this the hard way. I didn't even know. That's code enforcement, not DPW. Bring up if there's a.
Okay.
All right. They can notice the neighbor about a dead or diseased tree. And if you're ever planting trees, go for trees with deep roots. There are trees that are more shallow, deeper roots.
I get it. These trees have been there for years.
Right.
They're not trees, they're monster trees.
But I'm sure as Tom would agree, probably, because he's been Tenafly a long time, one of the factors contributing besides for change in weather patterns is the number of houses that exist here. There used to be half the number of houses, and all of that ground is now covered, and it used to absorb water. So what comes? Infrastructure, and we can't, and unfortunately, we cannot at this point change the infrastructure. That's
All right,
the
Jeff, we've
big
got
problem.
one
Yep,
public comment.
we do.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time. Okay. All right. Christine Ebron, looks like your hand is up.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just your name and address.
Christine Evron, 39 Leroy Street. First comment on the parking as Chamber of Commerce. We have a bigger problem that wasn't reported in the parking study. One, I'm happy to report that street parking is very hard to find again. And unfortunately, the employee parking lot opposite the post office is that you're issuing permits for isn't available to employees. Shoppers are coming in, especially at lunchtime, taking the spots. So we'd like to propose that the employee parking lot by the post office be turned into shopper parking. You now have more stores in the Inflatable Yours building where Yasu Santorini and Tito's are now. Turn that into shoppers parking and move your employees over to parking lot O. They don't have a spot where they can park any longer. They're already being crowded out. And they're an easy walk from parking lot O to the back of the shops where that are using that lot. Might want to consider that as a solution.
Okay,
And of
thank you.
course, as employee parking, it would also be available to the shop owners of the stores on Railroad that they're putting in, which might address Lauren's concern of commercial use. My other comment was on the Eagle Scout project, which actually I've been asking the Scoutmasters for that for years. All of the signs that are on Clinton and Engle Street are pretty current. They're all submitted to the borough by the various service organizations to be posted. They go up on poles. We replace them when they get knocked over by cars. On Clinton Avenue in particular, they get knocked over a lot, whether by lawnmowers or by cars. This project was designed to make them into a more attractive, less lethal to people driving down Clinton arrangement, which is why 9W is a very attractive place. You have in the past put up the welcome sign as a semi-permanent sign. I'm not sure if it's still there. 4x8 is a standard size for if you want to call it a sign, but you could call it something else. This is what small towns do at the entranceway of their town to let other people know what kinds of offerings they have in town. We have Tenafly nature signs all over the streets. We have the service organizations. We put up signs for the Arbor Day. We want to let people outside of Tenafly. That's why Hyler Park is not really appropriate on either side of it. 9W, Clinton and Railroad is seen by outsiders coming up Clinton, but there are nowhere near as many as by the gateway to our town on 9W. So
Okay, all right, Christine.
yeah,
All right.
you have a procedure
Thank you for those
already to look at
comments.
those. You have a procedure already for those signs. You don't have to write up a new
Yes.
ordinance on who's going to allow it. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christine. Omar, any other members of the public who appear to want to speak anywhere here or on Zoom?
I see no other hands, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to close public comment. Okay, now we're at the late hour, so we're going back to be considered.
I'm gonna skip all of mine, they're all mine.
So
I'll
women's
put 'em on-
suffrage, cosmetology, those are all yours?
Yeah, Omar, can you put all three of those on the next agenda, please?
That's fine, thank you.
Skip them. I do want to pull a resolution, sorry.
Okay, hold on, let's get to next agenda.
Went into Jimmy.
Okay, we passed public hearings, administrators report. We're gonna, is there anything?
Yes.
Go ahead, do your, whatever you need in the minute.
Very
Be
quick.
done.
A rescue grant, there's a resolution on for approval tonight to authorize
yes.
the contract, just by way of update.
Right.
Sorry.
That's the one I would like to pull separate and vote.
Okay, so tell your story, and then you'll pull that, we'll vote separately on it.
Yep, there's also a separate resolution for the authorization to bid for the electrical upgrades at the Tenafly Railroad Station. We went through, I believe Omar provided a resolution with updated dates for advertising and receipt of bids. We also, good news, were contacted today through the DEP. We applied for the DC Fast Charger grant. And we received notification today that we will be getting, that we're awarded the grant. So more paperwork to
Tell them
come.
how much.
$200,000.
Good job, Jimmy.
So, yes, so, no, happy to hear it. So more paperwork and more discussions to come. They informed us there'll be an agreement to be signed and approved. So, and last but not least, we have someone from the fire department here. Thank you for your patience. There is in my administrator's report, included a brief description of a grant that the fire department would like to apply for, along with authorization to retain a grant writer for a flat fee of $1,000. So Al, if you don't mind, just very briefly, high-level overview, if you could just kind of indicate what the chief's plans are for, to be purchased through this grant.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask one question before you start, but thank you for sitting through this whole meeting. Why do we not have Colliers with the fire? Are they not allowed to work with them?
No, I think it was just cheaper. This individual is, and Al could speak to it, is specific to fire departments. He has experience.
Service, don't we? Per application. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be from the operating budget, somewhere within the operating budget. But this, again, one is cheaper, and two, this individual specializes.
Which we need.
So, Al, if you just want to go with the high-level overview of what's.
I'm gonna be as quick as I
Yeah.
can. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come and speak on behalf of the fire chief, okay? And those memories of the flooding. I live in Rochelle Park, so I know what you guys are going through. It's crazy. Anyway, there's a governor's grant that just came out about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I've been a fireman for 44 years, and I get all the things from the county. I saw it, I printed it, and I brought it to Chief Philpott, and I said, this grant just came out, and I think it's something that you want to present. And he gave me the authorization to write it all up, meet with the administrator, and get this ball rolling. One of the things that I learned and talking to different areas in the fire service is this grant writer that we are hopefully going to contract with writes grants for different fire departments around us. He did Demorest, Oradell actually just got a grant that he wrote to replace every bit of their hose. I went on board, I got his name, I contacted him, he gave me basically what he does, and based on our needs, budgetary, everything, if we approve it, I'll contact him because we have to the 13th to submit it. And he will write the grant based on our budgetary restraints. So you can either match it or not match it. So we're put in for 20 sets of gear. Some of the gear in the firehouse is old. It's been through the COVID stuff. It's been through fires. And I almost fell off my chair when I found out when I got the proposal that a set of gear right now is $5,000 to a guy. And that's coat and pants. That's not including boots and helmet and everywhere else. $5,000 just for a coat and pants. So I met with Jimmy. We talked about it. To me, if we can get money to replace it rather than putting the emphasis on the budget or the capital budget, I dealt with that as an ex-chief in Rochelle Park. And we get this gentleman in for $1,000. I know they told me years ago they used somebody to a ladder truck. I think they would try to put a grant there for a ladder truck. It was $2,500, and then that was just to write the grant, and then later on, more money to do the legwork that goes along with it afterwards. Here, it's $1,000 flat fee. The whole thing. So if we get approve it, he's going to write it. He's going to write it towards our budget. I already explained to him.
How does the council feel about this?
Great.
So.
Stick work.
We're good.
If Mr. Carroll is bringing it here,
He was my son's teacher, so I know Mr. Grossman for years.
get it, so.
How's he doing?
He's doing great. He's up in the University of New Haven. He's a
Nice.
junior.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also,
We'll talk tomorrow.
We'll talk tomorrow. I get in 8:30, so.
I'll be there soon after. I have a meeting at 8.
Let me know.
Yep.
and We'll talk, and then I'll let the chief know in the morning. I'll see him in the morning.
Perfect.
Move forward.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
one, I want to say thank you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for being a fireman. But two, I'm your fire liaison, so if you want, you could work through me, you could work through Jimmy, and I could help facilitate whatever you need.
Okay, no, I didn't know who.
No, that's okay. I know, we never meet. We never have meetings,
Chief
so.
told me that 2 people from the council, I don't know if you were one of them,
I am.
forwarded to him.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I'm
So
the
if
other
you
one.
need any help just gathering information, and Vinu is online, he's the other one.
Yeah. Hi, I'm the other one.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Have a good night. Thanks for sitting through the meeting.
So just 2 quick things on the administrative report. So awesome on the RESCO grant.
Yes.
That's huge. Was it like $8 trillion when we first got it? Now it's 30,000.
That may include some repairs to the existing paths,
That's
because they were the original installer.
That's awesome.
So is that a grant that's, I'm sorry, I just want to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that
yeah.
a grant that's paid for?
So
Like,
it's
we use the money, or we just have to pay 30?
No, so I believe it's 33, it was $66,000 total, 33 and some 33,000 and some change matching.
What do we pay?
So we'll be paying, you'll be half.
It's a matching grant. So we
It's a
pay-
matching grant. This, yeah, we've, a couple things just real quick, because I think it's important to highlight. This is the same contractor that did the work originally, as Councilman Grossman just mentioned, the contractor will be doing improvements to the existing walkways and walking paths, including obviously building the new walking paths, and honoring his prices from 2018 under bid threshold, and relieves us from retaining an architect or engineer to do bid specs, because we're able to do it under bid threshold. So this is highly recommended to be able to keep under there. So, and it's already vetted. I was gonna say, yes, this originally was already vetted, but I spoke individually with the HPC chair and senior center director, and that they're happy to proceed.
And we're going to get the benches and tables.
That I think could be, yeah, it could be just to keep under the bid threshold, let this go, we can handle that after. Once that's all in place, we could purchase those items and install.
Purchase, we have it all. I want it done at the same time.
Yeah.
There's nothing new we have to buy. We have the benches.
DPW would move that after they finish. They can build this.
This includes 2 benches, by the way, within this plan. But any of the other items we could certainly do after the paths are installed.
Everybody gets to go.
Davis up here.
But it does include, yeah, no, but understood, yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry, I just had to go. Oh, Adam, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. I just had more questions on Resco. Were you still on that, or were you, okay. So I just want to make this clear. We're still owing 19 and change $1,000 to put in a gravel path. I just want to be really clear. There's no other aspects to
Well,
this?
there's the pavers, there's the emblem medallion, there's the benches.
Where's pavers going?
There's the medallion part of this.
It's like a round patio thing. Like in the center of Oresco Park, you have the pavers on the ground, that's a medallion.
Right. Don't we already have that?
Different.
I thought we're just.
This is where the benches and the chess tables
Yeah.
are.
That was the design.
Yeah.
Fine, I won't pull the resolution, but I still think it's.
There's nothing has changed from the
Right, nothing.
from the alternate, from the bid from 2018.
Again, I personally feel, I don't care much about the path, quite honestly. The deal that we've been discussing is, as long as I get it used, so that means I need those tables, I need the benches. As long as we have that, yes.
Totally in agreement with Adam. Totally in agreement.
And then just the other thing, just because I know this has always been in the administrative report, I know at the last meeting, we agreed to set up 2 subcommittees or whatever on the efficiencies, and seeing where we are on that. The grant writing, we've spoken about 2 examples today already. Where are we with those
So the
committees?
key guy, one of the key guys, residents on that, happens to be away. He will be back next week. And as soon as I have him engaged, I will have the others engaged. So for both, yes. So the next council meeting, all those names will be in place.
Yeah, it'd be great if actually they met before the next council meeting.
Well, that's the goal.
60 days from when we agreed. Okay, that's good. The third one that actually I thought, and we could discuss, I was thinking, I go through the buildings report, which is awesome. We have all of our fees. Another idea, again, the whole idea is to balance the budget, not on the backs of residents' property taxes. Have we looked at how we get our fee rate? So for instance, make up a number. You would pay like $25 to like build.
Jump in.
Tree permit.
No.
It doesn't, yeah, sorry.
Jimmy actually reached out to me. He's in the process of looking at some of the fees with the departments and construction or fire. Fire, and so they're going through the process of, seeing when it was last raised, what we're at, and what the rate is in the surrounding communities.
Yeah.
And it's in the process of being looked at, so that then it'll come to me for the ordinance to change the fees.
But that's just for the fire, or are you doing?
Right now, it's fire. So
Let's
We
look
could have a
at-
review all departments.
Just because I have a dollar bet that it costs us more to fill out the form than we actually get in the actual fee between the 37 people that have to sign it.
Of course.
So that's just another opportunity to help reduce our. Okay, great.
Close my report. Thank you.
Everything needs to go electronic onto the website, get rid of paper.
Well, that's gonna be the efficiencies.
Okay, so let's keep pushing forward. We've got under correspondence, the Eager Place Street opening, it has to be approved by council.
And a description of what's happening here, because I'm not familiar exactly with this issue.
Sure, go ahead, Jimmy, you want to explain that?
Sorry.
I mean, it comes down to,
We just paved this
do we
street and they
pave
want to
it?
open it.
And now we have to, the council has to approve it being opened.
Right, so your
Right.
current ordinance does not allow, as a matter of, generally, for a road opening permit, it gets processed through the borough's clerk's office.
Mhm.
There's specific language in your ordinance that if it's been touched within the last 5 years, it requires the approval of the mayor and council. And it also requires an extra fee of a bond in addition to the regular bond in order to ensure whatever the remaining lifespan of the 5 years of that road is. So I believe this road was worked on 2 years ago, so it would be for the remaining 3 years, the percentage increase in the bond. But it would require the approval of the mayor and council.
And this is for a
This is a
private home?
property that,
2 homes, yeah.
to build 2 homes. And this was the subject of a developer's agreement that you all approved at the last agenda. in July.
Is there ability to say no?
Is there what?
Is there an ability to say no to opening the newly paved street that our taxpayers just paid?
Council always has that ability, then, we have to deal with whatever comes afterwards.
Which is, they'd have to wait 3 years to do it?
I would be shocked if they waited 3 years to do it and took a different route. I mean,
It's up, yes, it's up for approval by the council, requires approval by the council. The
Developers agreement was signed, they've paid all their deposits or so, all their escrows.
The escrow for the road opening permit would not be collected, and Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, they're waiting to submit that, but they require this resolution first before Omar will move forward with it.
Yes, correct.
Really think that we're not tough enough on this issue.
What are we supposed to do, though, from a practical
This isn't an
standpoint?
emergency.
What?
This isn't an emergency. We know what applications and houses are flipping. We need to have better coordination, and if we've paved a road, a developer should be well aware that the road is paved. And I just don't think the fee or whatever bond you're talking about is enough of a deterrent. I mean,
So
I
the-
don't,
The bond is, there's the added fee added to the bond, but just to be clear, the bond is for the purposes of proving that the patching of the road and the replacement is sufficient, and it would have to be held for a time period, until the engineer signs off that the repair work is correct and is sustainable.
let's be honest, we know we've just spent so much money to mill and pave pristine roads. And the patchwork done, like Hudson is a perfect example. It's a
Well, they
nightmare.
have they come back
And
to,
you know what that requires? It requires paving again sooner. It's harder to maintain, it's worse in the winters, it's more likely to crack and break. It is actually costing our taxpayers money for this person to now open the road and the next person to open the road, it's not just this case. As a policy, this is a bad policy.
Well, you know, the question becomes is, we're going to have a moratorium on construction and utility repairs and things of that nature. It's,
Then
how do
maybe,
we coordinate that?
then require a better paving job here or a better fix. I
Well,
just,
they're supposed to do, what is it called? The
Infrared.
infrared. The infrared, which is exactly what you're suggesting,
Mhm.
which is what they're required to do, correct?
Yeah, correct, and that's the purpose of holding a bond in case if it isn't sufficient.
but not a mill and pave. Maybe we require,
What do you mean? I mean, because they have to go in and it has to be paved and built properly.
they're essentially adding just they're adding hot asphalt as like a patch, and then they're infrareding to make sure it's
That it's all blended
It's all
together,
blended.
correct?
okay. But the mill and pave makes a cohesive, you
For
don't
the
see the
portion-
patch.
So it does for the portion that you're working on. So unless you have them do the entire roadway beyond what they've actually impacted, and even then, you'll still have seams for the side roads.
So like I said, technically, there's not really an ability to say no on this. Very
I
frustrating.
think I would better say technically there is, for practical purposes, it's very difficult, right? That's the issue.
Then we need to look at this policy as, you know, the DPW committee constantly spends money to figure out this paving situation, and 2 minutes later, all our roads are getting open. It's not, it's a huge waste of our taxpayers' money. I'm sorry. There has to be some better policy here, so maybe we explore that.
All right, so is that resolution being, we're adding this resolution here?
The resolution could then, unless the council would like to vote on it separately, it would be
Yeah.
resolution
I'll vote on this.
R 22-267, and it could either be with the consent agenda or it could be voted on separately right after consent.
So it
I'd
sounds,
like to pull it for a separate vote.
sounds like we'll have it as a separate vote. There's 267, and it's called, excuse me?
You open it for eager vote.
No.
To make that road good for 20+ years. Now we're opening it good for.
All right, any questions about any other resolutions?
Mr. Mayor, before that, there was, one of the items on the administrator's report, the PSE&G Direct Install Program. Is that time sensitive in any way, or are we going to add that on to the next meeting agenda?
I would defer to the CFO. We've coordinated a little bit on this, but Susan has done more of the research and legwork on this. I think she would speak to the time-sensitive nature of it.
Questions about?
Can we just find out if it needs to be addressed immediately? Thank you.
Anyway, a representative called me from FSG, and he's an authorized individual that works directly with PSE&G. It's a direct install program that many municipalities are utilizing. And what we could do is they come out, they assess our buildings, and they see what we need, such as boilers, HVAC, and LED lighting. And with that, everything is for free. They will tell us what we need, and then they will do an analysis, provide that to the borough. And with this program, some of the funding could be up to 80%, and the balance of the 20%, it may not be up, it's up to 80%, but the balance can be financed over a 5-year period at 0%. So the representative offered to come in, and he said he could come in at the next council meeting if we'd like.
So we need the council to authorize you going ahead and scheduling this, really?
Right, because there's applications involved and things like that, so I thought it would be a good idea if you would meet with the individual prior to any.
So we have a consensus for Susan to go ahead and schedule this?
I would suggest yes.
Manu?
Right, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So no other questions? You're welcome. No other questions about the resolutions? Any question about the ordinance 2216 for the lease agreement?
No.
No? Do we have anything for the good of the order?
Next time.
Old business?
I I put this on, I just want to make everyone aware, the planning board meeting this Wednesday will discuss the application for the movie theater property. At this time, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the council ship has sailed on designation from our body. However, the planning board, consistent with their master plan, may choose to preserve the facade as as consistent with the historical, what is the word? Element, thank you, element of the master plan. And so if anybody wants to go and speak in Wednesdays as a resident, as a councilperson, Wednesday's meeting, that will be this week.
Good, thank you. I am going to, okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn to the regular council meeting, please? Have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, Omar, you ready?
Yes.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, the notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please, Omar.
Councilmember Dayton? Councilmember Grossman?
Here.
Councilmember Menon?
Here.
Councilmember Michaels?
Present.
Mayor Zena?
Here. Okay, are there any revisions to the agenda, Wendy?
There's one additional resolution, R 22-267, which would be the road opening permit for Eager Place.
Thank you. Public comments, are there any members of the public in the audience here, Omar, who look like they're looking to speak, or want to speak?
I see no hands, Mayor.
Any members of the public out in video land there who have their hands up? Or if you're out there, take yourself off mute and please jump in. No one?
No hands.
Okay, we're gonna close public comment. Okay, I'd like to get a motion to approve on the consent agenda, R 22-249 through R 22-266.
So move.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Omar?
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
We're good?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to get a motion to approve one additional item on the consent agenda, on the resolution R 22-267, street opening for Eager Place. Have a motion, please?
So move.
Have a second? Okay, Omar, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dayton?
No.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Okay, all right. Hold on one second, I just have to get my ordinances out. 2 seconds.
You have zero. Make it a.
Okay. All right. This is Omar 22-16 CSX lease agreement. Can you please read the confirmation of publication and the title?
Sure. Ordinance number 22-16, it was published in the Tuesday, July 19th edition of the record. It is an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Consolidated Rail Corporation.
I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Omar, is there anyone in the audience in the chambers or online who looks like they're looking to speak?
See no hands, Mayor.
Okay, no one online, right? You can unmute yourself. Looks like we'll close public comment. Councilman Michaels, would you like to make the motion, please?
I move to pass and adopt on second and
final reading, ordinance 22-16, that notice of the same shall be published according to law.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Omar, please conduct the roll.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Michaels.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to move the committee reports to the next meeting in light of the hour and move on to new business. We're going to introduce an ordinance, 22-17 for solid waste maintenance. Okay, could I have a motion? Jeff, would you like to make a motion, please?
I'm getting there. I move to introduce on first reading ordinance 22-17, set the hearing for September 6, 2022 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Omar, can you please read the title of the ordinance and conduct the roll call?
Sure. Ordinance number 22-17, an ordinance of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 19, Solid Waste Management of the Code of the Borough of Tenafly. Okay. Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Michaels.
Yes.
Okay, next is Mayor's Mark. I have one question is, I'd like to ask the council for a 15-minute extension on the 11 o'clock curfew if necessary. We have a consensus on that?
Yes.
Jeff?
There's still 17 minutes before you
Yes.
ask me that question.
Mayor, to ask the question, just so we don't have to come out to open to be able to.
Because then we have to come back out the door.
Come back here, it takes
Close.
longer.
10 minutes.
Okay, Councilman Michaels? Okay, Banu?
10 minutes.
Okay, you've got 10 minutes there, Attorney. Okay, can I have a motion to go into, you have to read it first, right? Can you please read the closed session?
It's resolution R 22-268. At a regular meeting of the mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, held on August 8th, 2022. The mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain matters which are exempted from the public. Those matters are attorney-client privilege of a confidential matter and tactics and techniques to protect the property of the public. And a second item of a DPW supervisor's driver laborers update under collective bargaining.
Do I have a motion to go into closed? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Let's go inside. You ready?
Whenever you are.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve resolution R 22-269?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Omar, call the roll.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Go to, come back to him.
yeah, I had to come back to him. Councilmember Michaels, what?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do it with three.
Yes.
It's for tonight.
I'm here, yeah. Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
If I've seen you before.